Shalom. Good morning. My name is Mike Bailey. I'm the Director of Content and the co-founder, together with Benny Moran, the owner of the BMP company, of the Restart IL conferences. We began this journey right after the war, almost 2 years ago, when we realized that the conflict, the war that ensued, and everything that happened, all those terrible events, had a great impact on the way that the Israeli innovation ecosystem is operating. There was a freeze on investments. There was a lot of concern. And after our first act, which was to take families of hostages to Europe to meet with political figures and so forth, we decided to turn our attention to the ecosystem of innovation. And together with a very good friend, a dear man and his family, Shai, who was the founder, together with his son Ofer and his wife Hila, of the Next October initiative. Regretfully, they lost their son on the 7th of October, and they are from the high-tech ecosystem. We decided to start these series of conferences under the name of Restart. It went through a few rounds of branding, Restart IL, Restart IL Economy. Now we're talking a bit about hope. But the basic premise was always the same. We want to bring Israeli startups to financial capitals to enable them to meet, mainly early stage, and to meet with investors face-to-face, create opportunities, create a network, and reinforce that amazing community, which on the one side has innovation, perseverance, resilience, great minds and creativity in the Israeli ecosystem, and with wonderful supporters, investors in different places and different locations around the world. We began in London, and since then, over the last 2 years, we're about to close November with 10 conferences. 3, this is the 3rd in New York, 2 in London. Next week we have another one in London, Frankfurt, Berlin, Athens, and Silicon Valley. And then we are going to go into 2026 with beginning in Frankfurt again. This has been a wonderful experience for all the startups that have attended. We've had close to 200 startups by now, close to 2,000 investors attending the different conferences. From what we understood, from the networking, from the deal flow, from the connections that were made, tens of millions of dollars have been raised. And this whole initiative has proven itself to be of importance, and mainly to create an ecosystem or reboost the ecosystem of investment by making these direct connections. We are now looking at a new phase. We're calling it Restart Hope, hoping that now that the war is over and new opportunities are being created, that Israel, the region, will all benefit from this boost of innovation. And we're taking the next step into this journey to hopefully bring prosperity through the network, through innovation, and through investment. All this would not be possible, of course, without our many supporters and partners along the way. And we'll mention them. They're all on the screen here. And as you'll see, some of them will be addressing us today in the program that we have. And I'll be mentioning them as we go along. But I would like to start by thanking White & Case. And Joel is here with us. White & Case have been good partners from the beginning. They have a strong affiliation with Israel, which is very evident through their support of this initiative. And they're hosting us today at this magnificent hall, so thank you very much. We have quite a full program today. So without further ado, we will start. I'll just mention 2 technical comments. One is that we're very punctual. We have a very full program, as you saw, many speakers. So we'll keep to the tight schedule, and you'll see me sort of marking the time as we go along. And the second thing is I'll be introducing a few of the speakers together, not coming up and down all the time. So they'll be introduced, they'll come, they'll speak, and we'll move on. We'll have a break in the middle, and then all convene when the program is finished for lunch. at around 1:30, 1:45 to network and complete this hopefully very exciting day. We have been partners with, even though this is a non-political, private-driven initiative, not associated with any governmental institution, we do have good friends and partners in the foreign ministry, embassies, and the economic attaches, which everywhere we go have been extremely helpful and cooperative. And based on that, I would like to start this day by calling Mr. Natan, Economic Minister of North America, head of the Economic Mission at the USA, who I understand is just beginning his term, so we would like to wish you Batzlacha Gdola.
Good morning, everybody. Let me just adjust my clock so I'll be punctual on time, right? Okay. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having us here. Allow me to present myself. My name is Natan Tsror. As Michael said, I lead the economic mission here. We represent the Ministry of Economy, the Foreign Trade Administration in the Ministry of Economy in Israel. What are we doing here? So we are trying to help Israeli company, you guys. We are trying to help Israeli economy to make business here. We think that exportation, investments in the Israeli economy and industry is contributing to the Israeli GDP, as well as to New York GDP, to the Israeli welfare of its residents and citizens, as well as to New York residents' welfare. So how do we do that? On an annual basis, our economic mission receives several hundreds of requests from individual Israeli companies wishing to trade. And to facilitate this, we are working directly and with local partners on professional and B2B activities, including in-person and virtual events engaging these ecosystems. Annually, this amounts to about 150 unique activities participated in the thousands of New York-based and Israeli companies. The results of all this is that we have here not only for direct result, but also we contribute to it. We have here more than 1,000 Israeli companies based in the city of New York. These companies is having more, we estimate more than 10,000 high quality jobs. When I say high quality, high qualified workers, engineers, doctors, academic. And if we take the second circle of employees, it's dozens of thousands of jobs in the city of New York. So we really think that you guys being here, trying to trade with the city of New York, you are contributing to the welfare of its citizens, to the welfare of the United States, to the GDP of the city of New York, and to our bilateral trade relations. Most common sectors for our activities are health and life science, AI solutions, enterprise software, fintech, retail, prop tech and energy, telecommunications, you can just name it. We will cover any Israeli industrial sector, and we will try to help you guys in any sector that you are working in. In the last several years, we have dozens of successful partnerships reported worth millions of dollars, if not dozens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And that all come together again to the welfare of our two countries and the city, in particularly the city of New York. So I'd like to wish you all a successful day, fruitful day, and thank you for our host. Thank you very much.
In order to create investment opportunities and business cooperation, we invite to all our Restart conferences senior representatives of the local investment and finance sector. So thank you all for joining us. To enable the Israeli entrepreneurs that you'll meet later on today, and they'll also be outside, to present their companies and explore investment opportunities together. As part of that, we aim to provide added value content through the day, and you'll see we have excellent Israeli speakers, local American speakers, and entrepreneurs themselves, to relate to what we call trends and opportunities in Israeli innovation. We're very fortunate to start this day with an outstanding panel with Ofer Ben-Yehuda, the managing partner of Shibolet law firm. And as you can see, Shibolet has also been a very strong and committed ally in this journey. We thank them for that. Harel Beit-On, founder and general partner at Viola Ventures, and Amit Pilowsky, co-founder and at Key One Capital. Please join me on stage. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we would like to start basically with a short introduction of each and one of you. If you can please share with us a bit about your firm, the work in the Israeli innovation ecosystem, activities, fields of interest, scope, things like that. We'll start with you, Ofer.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting us. We take great pleasure in participating in this great event. Anyway, Ofer Ben-Yehuda, a managing partner of Shibolet, a leading law firm in Israel. Basically, to refer to what we are doing here, basically having our hands on each and every step of the Israeli tech ecosystem, like 700 startups that are part of our clients. Some of them are here, and you will be happy to hear them later. Incubators, accelerators, VCs, and etc. What we are trying to do for many, many years is bring the only thing that we can bring to, usually smarter clients and entrepreneurs is the experience and all the mistakes that we have done with all the other clients, trying not to repeat it again. And we are dividing our tech practice, which is above 100 professionals, to certain ecosystem, trying to attack from day one, from the founders agreement point, with a holistic group of corporate transactional lawyers, with regulatory lawyers, with commercial lawyers. The environment today, you need to touch those points in a very, very early stage in order to avoid spending energy or mistakes in the A round and later on, and we take great pride in taking part of that, and thank you again.
Thank you for, my voice is horrible, I'm sorry, nothing personal. My name is Harel, I'm co-founder of Viola Group, the leading tech investment group in Israel with almost $7 billion AUM. My day job is actually a general partner at our growth fund, which is an expansion fund that comes into companies as they scale up their business after early product market fit that exists. I've been in the ecosystem for 45 years now, 20 years with a real job as a CEO of a software company, and 25 years building Viola. Thank you for being here.
My name is Amit Pilowsky. Thanks for inviting me. I'm a co-founder and managing partner of Key One Capital. Key One Capital is a growth stage fund. We raised 300 million and we started investing end of 2021. We invest across technology, mainly focused on Israel. Our main focus is AI infrastructure, software, fintech, cyber, where the ecosystem is. We tend to invest after product market fit is proven, helping companies to scale up. By background, I spent a bunch of years at Goldman. We're three partners. The three of us worked together for many years at Goldman, and we are looking to bring that experience and knowledge to our portfolio companies. Thank you very much.
So we are after 2 years of many, many challenges to the Israeli economy, some would say 3 years, and the investment ecosystem. Now the war is hopefully over. What do you think is the impact this period has had on investments in Israel, if any, the resilience that the ecosystem has shown? And do you think we have turned the curve and are now heading into a more optimistic and more sort of supportive environment. Harel, maybe we'll start with you.
I'd like to go back to basics. You know, what we have in Israel are absolutely the best people in the world. And that's not to derogate from all Americans sitting in the room, but I really think we have an exceptional group of people that are super talented, super ambitious, and are ready to conquer the world. This has not been taken away by the war or by the political reform. I think that we did see, obviously, a lot of the U.S. investors that are usually responsible for the late stage investing in Israel with a high percentage depart from the market for a period of time. They're all coming back now because eventually greed supersedes fear, and there are opportunities in Israel and they're coming after them. And I think we'll see that trend going forward. Statistics, you know, you have a bunch of statistics. This will be a record year of investments in Israel. It doesn't tell a full story because it's really a very bifurcated market. The haves and the have-nots. Some companies are flushed with cash, huge rounds, and so on. Other companies are struggling. I think overall, the ecosystem is not in good shape. I think a lot of the companies are finding it very hard to have follow-on rounds. And I think for the people sitting in this room, this is an opportunity because it's a buyer's market and you can get favorable terms on many Israeli companies. Also on the exit statistics, which are, you know, very, very impressive. I think it's something like $67 billion to date. 55, 58 of that are two deals. You know, so that again tells you that the others have seen a decline in liquidity. I think all of that is gonna go away. I think a leading indicator of that very clearly is the capital markets in Israel. You know, we overachieve Nasdaq, S&P 500 since October 7th to today. So we've outperformed during this period the excellent performance that the whole world saw in the American indices. So that goes to tell you about the fundamentals and about the expectations going forward. So I remain very bullish about where Israel is going.
Amit, can you also expand and maybe talk a bit about, has the brand been tarnished? I mean, are companies afraid to say they're Israeli now? Not for economic reasons, but for branding?
So I just want to add one more thing on Harel's point, and I'll touch upon that. So I think what Israel demonstrated, the tech ecosystem in Israel has demonstrated in the last 2 years, and the war is maybe ended, who knows, a month and a bit ago, is that resilience. And to Harel's point on volume investments, just to get you some perspective, 2024 was 25% higher than 23 or 9.6 billion altogether invested in Israel. 25 year to date, so as of last week, it's over 15 billion. And I think that's a testament to that resilience that Israeli founders that demonstrated throughout the war. And I think that does not go unnoticed to investors. And what we have seen over the last 12 months or so is more investors who, some of them have never invested in Israel, or at least not at that intensity. Some of the best investors globally, like Sequoia, Lux Capital, Founders Funds, and others, doubling down on Israel in a very significant way. And I think that, if anything, and this has nothing to do with the war over, this is actually has everything to do with war taking place and founders and companies continuing to deliver. On your question regarding is it a good moment to mention that you are an Israeli company, I think it's a tricky point, and we hear a little bit of rumbling that in some places, in some instances, mentioning that you're an Israeli company might not be an advantage. Maybe in the past it was, and now in some places, maybe it's isolated, maybe it's a phenomenon and it will pass. We don't know, but this is something that we need to monitor. And by the way, also as investors, in going now to an endowment, we're launching our second fund early next year. We have no plan to go to any of the endowments that had encampments on their campuses. It's probably not the first LP we'll speak with. Before that, it would be a totally legitimate target. So I think we see that a little bit.
I also think, if I may add,
Absolutely.
you should look at Europe versus the US. That there's a big difference, I think, from our experience. I think in Europe today, one has to be much more cautious about the origin. I think European LPs would be scrutinized severely by their contributors, pension funds, whatever. So I think this war has created a huge damage for Israel, huge public relations damage. I hope it changes the map in the Middle East, and that would be a benefit to stand there. But it's definitely has challenged us. I think the biggest fear in my mind is when that will affect the revenues of the tech ecosystem, the efforts of actually acquiring customers. And if customers will say that, well, you're an Israeli company, we don't want to do business with it, this would be a huge blow. I haven't seen it, and I hope we would never see that. And I hope also things will settle down.
Absolutely. Ofer, when you relate to all of this, can you also, we're now after the war, but it seems as if the reform, whatever they want to call it, is back on track in a big way. Also, maybe you can relate to that as an effect, how it affects the ecosystem.
So first of all, just to refer to the two speakers there. So first of all, I agree. The tech industry showed great resilience, and in those ecosystems in which is the AI and the cyber and the fintech, which the Israeli brand is, I think, is so strong, it can survive all the obstacles that we are doing. I must say that, let's say, from the boardrooms that we are there, from the early stages companies, which are not the unicorns and are not the, I would say, the second timers, then you see that those 2 years were devastating. I would say it like that. If you are a healthcare or agtech or a food tech or a climate company trying to secure fund, it was, I would say, almost impossible. The money that used to come from Europe on those, specifically from strategic partners, basically stopped. And hopefully, I don't know if I have the statistic, but we see that something is moving right now. We see more term sheets, so hopefully, but I don't think that we can determine that it's already changed. And I think the worst thing that happened to the Israel tech ecosystem, and I think that we'll see the result of that within few years, is that I would say that around 50% of the new companies or the early stage companies are being incorporated outside of Israel due to, I mean, if you look at the tax, I'm not talking about entrepreneurs that come to relocate themselves and are actually a US founders, but sometimes due to VCs mainly, and not the Sequoia of the world, but all the others, they find themselves with an Israeli company, everyone in Israel, and you do some kind of a shell Delaware company, or now they're speaking about Nevada and Texas, but that's the same. And while people are looking at it as if it's a technical thing, I must say that we see that it shifts to the US, and I think that the next generation of those companies, Israel will miss them, and I don't see that being reverted in the short or mid-term. So I think we need to do more in order to make sure that we have the next generation in Israel. And just
it's a brain drain.
Yeah.
I think people are alluding to the judicial reform in Israel. Personally, I think it's a much bigger issue than the Hamas. And that really goes for the foundation of our country and the way it is governed. And that's a very unfortunate process that is happening. However, in this forum, I can say that it has to be looked at within a global context. This is not us. It's not about us. I mean, we Israelis, of course, we go to demonstrate every week, and we go in Tel Aviv and all that. But fundamentally, if you see what's going on in the U.S. today, and I'm not getting into American politics, it's what happens in Israel on steroids. If you see what is going to happen in the UK if Reform UK gets elected, or what's happening in France with the conservative part, and Germany, we are reliving populism from 100 years ago. I just hope it ends a little better than what happened last time. But again, it's not our problem, it's the world's problem. And in that sense, it does not differentiate Israel or does not put Israel in a disadvantage versus other places in the world.
But we are more vulnerable, maybe.
Because we don't have a constitution,
Yeah.
okay, for example.
Okay, so we set the scene. We spoke about the resilience and the fact that the impact wasn't as great as we were feared. We spoke about the challenges, which apparently are many. But you also mentioned, Harel, that this is a buying opportunity, that there are great opportunities in the market, and I think people would like to hear where you see, all the three of you, the next opportunity, the next round of opportunity. We'll start with you, Amit, but maybe let's exclude cyber for a second. I mean, you can mention cyber, but everyone knows cyber has always been an opportunity, and talk about other fields. Amit, bevakasha.
So actually, I want to address that from a macro perspective. And I'll touch upon specific fields, but from a macro standpoint, when you think about the Israeli economy, the ways it has performed throughout the war, we're going to have 3.3% GDP growth this year. But looking forward in the midterm with Abraham Accord, which will create huge prosperity in the country, with the Gaza reconstruction, which a lot of that capital will flow through Israel just by the proximity, which unfortunately we all are aware of well, and so on, as well as immigration, that the political and the environment and the climate in many countries and cities in Europe and the US are driving some people to move into Israel. So from a macro standpoint, Israel is poised to have probably its biggest growth opportunity in the next decade. And tech within that is a core of the economy today, half of the growth. So just extrapolate where tech will be in 10 years. So I think that's the first point that I do want to mention. On specific sectors, Israel is strong in cyber, that's an obvious, A200 and the rest of it. I do want to talk about defense tech, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more as an area of growth. We already see it happening, and looking into the next decade, is probably, or the next 10 years, it's probably going to be a significant growth engine inside the tech economy.
Harel? Where are the opportunities now?
Cyber is for the people in the audience, it's a great opportunity for early stage if you get into the right names. It's, in my opinion, a poor opportunity for scale-up investors because it's just too expensive, and in most cases, there's no multiplier to expect. But I would say that for me, the biggest thing is vertical AI, and that affects also the fintech, which is another area of very strong presence in Israel. I think that what we call vertical AI is basically next generation enterprise software that will go and will automate or will computerize all the business processes that we have basically in the economy, in insurance and banking and manufacturing and what have you. And I heard a statistic that, the total labor bill in the world is something like $16-17 trillion that the world is spending on salaries for people. If we can save 10% of that, all this investment that is taking place in AI and people are worried about is negligible. The impact on the payback of these investments in AI will be enormous. So I think for me, and Israeli entrepreneurs are the best there are in focusing on a vertical and a market and utilizing the best technology can offer and creating the next generation products that would either disrupt completely or augment existing IT systems in the world of enterprise, which I think is very big. Fintech is another area that will benefit a lot from AI and therefore should see an acceleration in the democratization of finance in the world, which is essentially what fintech is doing. So I think we're up for very interesting times.
Do you have examples? I mean, names that you would like to mention of?
No, we have great companies, but I was
Keeping them to yourselves, okay. Ofer?
Yeah, so first of all, I do agree with Harel and Amit. I would like to say that what happens in the defense tech, and Amit will elaborate on that because he's there, is amazing. Again, we took the 2 years of the basically live laboratory that we had. We see many US companies, NASDAQ companies that are basically doing shopping right now in a very early stage companies that have initial revenues but have great pipeline with respect to that. It's very interesting to see what will happen there. What will the giants do? Meaning whether those companies can bite a bit, the Elbits of the world, or etc., or whether they will get into the game and do something. That's something that yet to be seen. I'll try to elaborate on. I'm doing a lot of healthcare, and like I said before, it is a tough time. I do think that we see movement, and I think that we'll see that in the next year or so, due to the, again, deeper AI and the agentic AI that we all see. So in the medical device arena, I would say software as a device, companies are getting more attention, what we call the new pharma, using the quantum and the computers in order to have better platforms for development of medicine and drugs. We see outside, approaching companies on those issues, and I really hope, because we have great engineers and great platform over there, and we just need to move a bit to the investor side here in the US and other places, and hopefully that will bring those companies to the next stage, because they need a lot of money.
Harel, you mentioned the democratization of the financial system in fintech. Maybe you can refer specifically to blockchain. You see any Israeli enterprises that are coming through?
Just to give credit, I do agree that medtech is a very, remember, it's maybe the highest priority for normal people, not people that deal with defense tech and stuff like that. Normal people want healthcare, and I think we are seeing huge revolutionization of drug development because everything is so data-driven now. We're seeing changes in the way hospitals and service providers are managed, from call centers to operating room optimization to anything. I mean, there's so much to be done there. It's a huge ecosystem. So I agree. Eventually this will happen. And blockchain, for me, blockchain was for a few years a technology looking for a problem. But, other than crypto, it didn't make a huge impact on reality. I think it's the foundation of all the next generation fintech, and possibly more than fintech, because, when you do traceability of food safety, you can find any manufacturing, you see it in every place. It's a very good, very scalable, very robust, very redundant software architecture that will find itself into many, many parts of our life.
And Israel is there, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So defense tech was mentioned by all three of you, and Amit, understand that is something you're focusing on. Can you give us a bit of an overview and some specifics, maybe?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we start to focus on defense tech as a theme more than 2 years ago, after the Ukraine war, before October 7th, when the movement towards adopting earlier stage technologies was obvious, because you've seen it in the battlefield. And what we've done is we start to research the space, and the more we understood it, the more we understood how specialized it is, and you need to really deeply understand the technology, the use case. It's a different sales cycle, different cell motion, also different buyers. So you need to approach defense tech investing in a different way. And what we've done is we created a team that is focused solely on early stage defense tech. Why early stage? We have seen through our collective effort at Key One more than 300 opportunities in the last 18 months, of which the vast majority are companies that were created in the last 24 months, which basically means that there is a big wave of innovation and founders who feel that there is an opportunity. Maybe some feel that that's their calling because of October 7th and the rest of it. But the long shot of that is that in a few years from now, we'll start to see a defense tech ecosystem building up that didn't really exist before. The knowledge is in Israel is superior, and we've seen that in almost every step of the last 2 years, including the Iran element and so on. And now it's unlocking and moving into the private sector. From opportunities, specific opportunities, I would say we see innovation in Israel, by the way, and we're also scouting outside of Israel, in a way across the board. Drones and anti-drones and anti-drones, this is an obvious part of that building up ecosystem, but it's everything, communication, lasers, etc. So there's no one specific area that you can say, okay, this is interesting, because there are so many. And what we do with that team and that effort is we did 3 investments, and probably will complete our 4th early stage ones in kind of a separate effort. And over time, it will grow into growth, which is our main mandate.
And who is the customer?
The customers are governments. And we can talk about dual use, because in many companies, we see that element of the customers are militaries, which effectively is governments, complicated to get through and get to. It's concentrated by the default of where the budgets are, and just see the increases of budgets. I think there is a point to articulate on budgets, which is the increase in budgets that has happened in the last 18 months globally is bigger than the cyber industry altogether. Just the increase. So this gives a little bit of magnitude to the opportunity in defense. But to the point on who's the end customers, we said governments, but then we meet many companies who basically say, okay, we are dual use, because you can use our technology also for civilian use cases. I'm a small believer in that, because I think it's hard enough to crack the governments, and doing that while trying to crack the civilian sector in parallel, it's in my view almost impossible. So when we focus on companies, we are thinking about, okay, what's the defense use case? And if it's a dual use, then probably less of a case for us.
That's a cherry on top. I should mention that the Israeli aerospace industries are partners of ours through this whole initiative, and they've been doing some amazing work with innovation, and we'll hear later from a startup they are supporting. Ofer, AI was mentioned, but implementing AI, which has become from nice to have to an existential issue, is complicated on all different kinds of levels. Do you see companies, how can they deal with it, and where do you see the challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, so we see it everywhere. Again, I don't think you see a company that will survive if it doesn't do so. And yes, we see a lot of challenges. I would say you don't have to be an AI company, meaning any company that implement AI tools. So first of all, I think there is a contradiction between the tech culture. The AI is moving fast, while it requires, from a regulatory responsibility, accountability part, it requires safety, it requires testing, it requires, governance. And I think that companies are struggling to balance between, I would call it, iterate speed on one hand, and reliability and accountability. That's as a header. Now, if you go and take it, first of all, you have a heavy regulatory environment. So you have all the laws and rules and the privacy rules that govern that, and then you have AI-specific rules, specifically in Europe, that we see. And again, those required from what we see from our side, which is a great business for us, but you see a lot of documentation that you need to do, a lot of audit trails that you have to do, and at the end of the day, companies are coping with that, especially due to the fact that they have, rapid manufacturing iterates of the product, and each product needs a different one. Other than that, there are questions about IP ownership and licensing. You see now in every agreement, which is not an AI agreement, that basically you see training sections, you see licensing all around that. And so this is, from our perspective, something we see more and more. I think a lot of companies, including Shibolet for that matter, are asking themselves whether to develop their own proprietary models and again, integrating commercial APIs or going to third parties, open source, take it, and you need to balance cost, speed, safety, and you don't want to be, I would call it, locked in by a vendor. So this is something that we see going as a going concern. And I think that it will even get a more complex question now that we are moving. While Gen AI was something that you could shift, now the agentic AI, in which it's really autonomous, and while you need to take care in order to make sure that you have, some kind of a callback mechanism to fix things that happen. You need to have tools permission. So this is all great challenges that all the companies are facing, and we will learn due time how to do it in a better way. Currently, there is certain frustration in certain companies while implementing those.
Interesting. So we had many other topics to discuss, but we're coming towards the end of our very interesting conversation. So one last round of questions. We have here Israeli entrepreneurs. We have investors. If you could speak to the investors and say, what do you look? How do you evaluate or give one sort of main focus point that you would be focusing on when you evaluate an Israeli company or an Israeli founder? What would be your tip to the American investors that are here when they're meeting outside with our wonderful entrepreneurs? Amit?
Where do you start? I mean, it's a long...
It has to be one, I'm afraid.
So I think a key focal point for us is just the quality of the team, the resilience, the strength, because you come into the investment, especially if you come early, there might be 4 pivots before the company will find its purpose and product market fit. And you need a team that is agile enough, strong enough, cohesive enough as well to sustain all these challenges. And these are a key focal point. We spend a lot of time. We come in at growth when there is 10, 20 million of revenues. There's a lot to diligence, but our primary focal point is understanding the team.
I would say, first of all, opportunity-wise, humanity spent the last 50 years digitizing everything. We now have a technology that can actually make sense of it and do something useful with it. You cannot pass on that opportunity. You have to be there. You have to invest in AI-powered companies. When it comes to entrepreneurship in Israel, entrepreneurship I defined as temporary insanity. The idea of getting up in the morning and thinking that the world is waiting for your next invention. We're excellent in that. We're very, very good, and I think Israeli entrepreneurs are resourceful, are committed. They have to show their mother that they're good enough. This is a very powerful thing. And so I would see Israel as a destination for early stage, for expansion stage, for many years to come.
So we're not in bubble territory when it comes to AI?
There is.
I think, when they invented combustion engine, was that a bubble? Do you know what it has done to humanity? And then when they invented the internet, there was a bubble, but we live here today, and that's just another utility that we're using. AI will be bigger than both.
Yeah.
So
Just maybe to refer to Harel. So you do need, again, it's all about the teams, I agree, and you need to have a temporary insanity, but you need to be careful when you are evaluating that. On the line between, north and south, I would say not too insane on that matter. You need to find a proper balance. That's the secret in the end of the day.
So thank you, three of you, for joining us today, for sharing with us your insights. Please thank our wonderful speakers. Toda rabba. Through the different conferences that we held, the 8 conferences to date, this is 9 and we're moving on to 10, we explored a wide variety of Israeli innovation: Meditech, digital health, climate tech, impact, agrotech, AI, cyber, fintech, dual use and defense, mobility, and prop tech, and I probably lost a few on the way. This time we decided to put a spotlight on a bit of a deep tech approach. And through the day, we'll have with us experts and some of the founders that will be discussing the 4 topics that we have included in our logo this time: quantum, blockchain, robotics, and AI. And you'll see through the day that we've had excellent speakers to give you a perspective, an overview, and some in-depth analysis of where the opportunities are in these 3. So we would like to start with our first guest, who will be speaking about what's next for quantum, and that is Assaf, who's a partner and CTO at Earth and Beyond Ventures. Assaf, bevakasha.
Thank you for having me here. I've been asked to introduce myself first. So, as being said before, Assaf Wise, I'm a partner at Earth and Beyond Ventures. That's a deep tech venture capital that invests in early stage startups. And we're focused in Israeli startups as well. A bit about my background. I'm a physicist and I'm a mathematician. Started my elderly life in a unique program in Israel called Talpiot, then moved on to the 81st unit, which is known more like as Shmone Echad. And for some reason, I found myself spending additional 21 years there, later on retiring as a lieutenant colonel and having a lot of fun, I must say. Moved on to become CTO of a Dutch industrial company with over than 20 subsidiaries doing all kind of R&D for industrial tech, and then was a part of the founding team and a partner as well at Earth and Beyond Ventures. So now let's dive a bit into quantum. I just came back from San Francisco on the red-eye flight, so for the sake of all of us, I'll try to make it simple. So when people think about quantum, and especially quantum computers, most of them think about something futuristic, which might be in the future, which people might use, but the truth is that it's here. It's already here, and it's about to be everywhere. How much everywhere? Well, if we look at the basic things we have in our life, our food, so things like herbicides and pesticides, creating new type of genes for a new type of agriculture and plants, pharma, all the inventions of new medicines, understanding of complex systems, all those things will change, including that communication and understanding of space, and also economics. All those are super complex systems that today we try to understand and try to predict and try to solve using standard computers, which have bits, zeros and ones. With quantum computers, we can push the whole reality into one quantum computer, and suddenly the answer is solved, it appears, and the problem is solved. I won't go into the complexity of how it's being done, but I'll touch a few things that might be relevant for you. So again, when going into quantum, we've said that in the future there might be, or I think there will be, quantum computers. One of the first problems quantum computers can solve is the RSA coding. That's the coding. That's how the whole internet is encrypted. RSA coding is a complex mathematical problem that standard computers don't have enough time to solve. But quantum computers can solve very fast. Therefore, already there's now an industry that tries to change the RSA encryption in order for, once there is a quantum computer, people or countries won't be able to see what we're talking about and what information passes through the internet. Now, even today, countries like China, the US, and maybe others are recording the whole internet communication or parts of it. You know, in many cases, China, it has been published, redirects the internet communication through certain hubs. Instead of going from, let's say, from Canada to the US and back, suddenly it passes through a router in China and then goes back. During that time, the Chinese can record the whole information and keep it for the day when a quantum computer will be available and all the communication can be deciphered. So one thing happening now is post-quantum codes. Another thing is, as you see, the satellite with two lasers is things like QKD, quantum key distributions, where instead of changing the code, let's try to pass the keys to the two peers within the communication in a way that nobody else can hack. So we're sending photons, which are single photons, which enable you to detect once your communication is being hacked. So two banks talking to each other can actually know that the communication is being hacked and change the key, replace the key with a new key. And again, until they get a key which is a safe key, only then will they start their communication between them. And that is already something that the quantum computer cannot solve. Which countries are doing this type of QKD today? So there is Britain, and that works on this type of technology, the US, and of course, China. When going into other aspects of quantum computers, or quantum technology, sorry, there's sensors. Even today, we have quantum sensors. Already today, there are sensors that can feel very small magnetic fields, which enable to make devices like MRI much better. We have already quantum devices that can sense minor accelerations, enabling us to navigate with no GPS. There are ships and presumably submarines of the US which don't need any GPS communication in order to navigate beneath the sea level, because their compass or accelerator measurement is so accurate due to quantum sensing, so they don't have to have any GPS at all. And another aspect is gravity measurement. That enables you to maybe locate minerals, heavy minerals for mining, all kind of rare metals, and other things like for defense tunnels. So all those accurate, very, very fine sensors are already either developed or already exist right now today. And to the Holy Grail, that's the quantum computer. To the left, that's a standard silicon processor, but to the right, that's a quantum processor, which is based in this case on superconducting. There are many technologies to have a quantum computer, photonics, atomic, ions. When we talk about quantum computers, when people say, oh, it might not happen or it will happen in the future, I can tell you that one of the leading startups, it's not, they have, they're funded by billions already. They are saying that within less than 2 years, there's going to be a full operating quantum computer that will solve all the problems we spoke about. That's less than 2 years. IBM speaks about 2029 as their goal for having a full operating quantum computer. Google is around the same time. So we're not talking about something within our imagination. That's real, that's happening, and it's really, really close. Now, when looking into what quantum computers can solve, most people say there aren't enough problems that a quantum computer can solve, and we should not really look at into quantum computers as something serious. But here is an example of a graph showing 13 different problems that quantum computers can solve. The bottom line axis refers to the amount of required qubits. That's logical qubits, not physical qubits. There is a factor of about 1,000 between physical qubits and logical qubits. And you can see that once there are about 100 or even 1,000 qubits, real problems can be solved. Real problems. And that means that we only need about 100,000 or a bit more. Million is the number most startups use in order to reach the point where real problems can be solved. Now today, most quantum computers around, they have a few hundreds, but companies are now working on how to scale those quantum computers. And still, when talking about the amount of applications, saying that 13 is not enough, do you remember this thing, the first iPhone? How many apps came with the first iPhone? Do you remember? 15. They had only 15 apps within the first iPhone. The App Store was opened only 1 year later, and then it only had a few hundreds. Today we have millions. So imagine what will happen with a quantum computer. We're starting with 13 apps, and once the focus will be on, okay, we have something working here, let's start doing with this thing something, the amount of apps will be enormous. Now, what stops us from getting to this point? We spoke about the number of qubits. Now, I believe that moving into digital quantum rather than analog quantum, that's the way current quantum computers work. Moving into the digital area, this will enable the real scaling of quantum computers. And I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Companies like Atlantic Quantum, Seek, and the Israeli startup Quamcore. They all think the same way. By the way, I think Viola has led the seed round for Quamcore. And I can tell you already that Atlantic Quantum was acquired by Google. And so there are only two left. Who will acquire them? And so the potential is amazing because a company like Quamcore is really building a building block, a digital building block that will enable 1 million qubits within one cryostat. Cryostat is the fridge where qubits are kept in almost 0 Kelvin. That's the absolute 0 temperature. And this will enable 1 million qubits soon, very soon. So again, when coming back to the question, what's next? So as I see it, startups who want to go into the quantum area or investors who want to invest in quantum, the gates are not closed yet. There are still opportunities. As we saw a second ago, there is much place to find new applications for quantum computing. Find a new application, you'll be the first one there, and probably you'll be the dominant within that application. Also, improving the accessibility. Who knows to program a quantum computer here? Probably no one, neither do I. But we all had some type of experience, maybe most of us, and working and doing some type of programming, I would say, from an Excel level down up to a C++ level. The accessibility of enabling coders to code for quantum computers, that's a major issue. Now, there are companies already working on that, but there are going to be many more. The third thing that I think there is still much potential there is the infrastructure. Quantum computers require different infrastructure, different manufacturing capabilities, and many other things that normal computers do not require. What we have here today concerning the infrastructure, I would say is almost in the scientific level, meaning what scientists are building and everything is like in the lab doing the best and not really commercial. Once we go into a commercial world of quantum computing, building a better infrastructure is definitely a major potential. So, in general, I would say quantum computing is not something futuristic. It's happening now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assaf, for that introduction into this fascinating field. And now we're moving on to the first presentation by the startups. So as I stated before, the core idea of Restart is to enable startups to present, network, and meet with investors in the different capitals of the world. I mentioned also the figures. We had close to 170 now, I think, with today and with London startups who are presenting, who met to close to 2,000 investors. The way we are doing this is, first of all, you'll see that outside the startups have tables. They're there to meet, network, and discuss. I would say that's part of the main focal point of today. Later on, we'll have a break, then we'll have a lunch break, and you have an opportunity to meet with them. But to do so, we have provided them each with 5 minutes on stage to basically introduce themselves and awake your curiosity, so you'll know who's waiting for you outside. We also have distributed all their contact details to people who registered, and will continue to do that after the conference. So without further ado, we'll move on to the first round of startup presentations, and I would like to invite on stage, they'll join me here, then come to the podium each and present. Shai Newman from Skillreal, Dr. Nissan Maskil from Qarakal AI, who's from Quantum, Sharir Dolev from RelyOn, and David Mermelstein from IDEEZA. And Shai, you can already make your way right here because you'll be the first to present.
Okay, so good morning. My name is Shai. I'm the founder and CEO of Skillreal. I came from the Air Force. So in the Air Force, we did sensors and computer vision, not cybersecurity. But still, we can do very interesting things. I will start maybe with explaining about the word metrology. You see here the word metrology. This is actually the domain in which you measure parts that you manufacture, and you want to measure them very, very accurately to see that they are aligned with the spec. Okay. So what is the problem? Currently, if you are a manufacturer, you want to inspect, to do dimensional metrology inspection of your parts. You either use a human inspection, which is very slow, and you have to take it to the measurement room, and it takes a lot of time. Or if you want something robust, you buy these inspection stations, which are very complex, very expensive, takes a lot of space, and therefore there are very few of them on the manufacturing line. So the fact is that only a fraction of the parts are dimensionally inspected. So if we look at automotive, which is our first market and the biggest industry still, at $4 trillion industry, about $60 billion every year are lost due to dimensional and structure issues. It's either reworks, recalls, line stop, and all the cascading effects that derived from inefficient inspection. So we are changing all that. We are coming with a new 3D eye metrology inspection technology. We create a new category that enable inspection at scale, dimensional inspection at scale. It means that we can do very, very accurate. We are talking about 0.05 millimeter precision. So we're talking about high-end systems, but we are doing it mainly with standard software, with standard hardware, sorry, and with software. And it's very exciting times because what we are doing now, when we started to develop our algorithms a few years ago, we need all the night to run on all the algorithms, and now with the NVIDIA GPU, we can do it in real time. So it's amazing times, and it opens so many opportunities with the large AI models and so on. So we have been founded in 2020. We raised so far $12 million. We launched our products a few months ago, and we already have got a booking of $2 million on the first 6 weeks of this quarter. So we are scaling quite fast. We have the largest OEM, Toyota is our customer, the largest tier one, Magna is our customer, and we have strong support from NVIDIA and Siemens and their ecosystems that helps us to scale. We have a team of more than 20 people that's now it's starting to grow in the US and in Israel. We focus our initial activity mainly in the US for many reasons. We don't have the time to go into it, but there are good reasons. There is a lot of reshoring and a lot of requirements for the manufacturing side here in the US. Okay, so as I said, our solution is software-driven, which means by far more flexible and adjustable than the legacy hardware-based industry. The product is proven, it's already working at lines. We are doing very accurate measurements within the cycle time, and it's very easy to deploy and scale, and we generate very fast ROI to our customer. You are invited to see our technology to action. I will just say that it include a new technology of calibration. We transfer cameras, standard cameras to metrology grade, very accurate sensor. We align the parts, we align the 3D model of the part on top of the image so we know where it is. Then we do the measure, we use our 3D eye metrology engine, and then we do the inspection, generate a lot of valuable data that generate a lot of value for predictive maintenance, and while using our system, the manufacturers can gain a lot of value. This is a video that shows how it works. I hope I can activate it. Yeah. So it starts with loading the 3D model of the part, loading all the features you want to inspect, the tolerances. This is the 3D model. This is the alignment I was talking about. From this alignment, we know where the things should be. These are the dots. We do the 3D eye inspection, and within seconds, we measure hundreds of features. The crosshair is where the actual feature is, and the dots are where it should be, and you can see the deviation. You can see some orange things that are out of tolerance, and then we decide if it's fail or not. You can see the alignment. We do all kind of quality inspection. And again, we can dive into it later on. So this is a proven technology. The last few months it was deployed, it's proven, it's already generated very, very significant ROI to our customers. Of course, the best thing is that they buy it and buy again. This is the best validation. But also during these years, it's very challenging industry. We were compared to many sensors. You see here sensors that cost more than 100 times of our sensors, and we, for the astonishment of the customer, we beat we are more accurate than this sensor. It's very scalable. Just as a reference, if you go to a plant, you have more than 50 systems that you can deploy at the plant, the site, and large companies, for example, like Magna, have 47 sites only on this body structure factory, so we can reach thousands of systems quite. We have a clear path to scaling. The team is very strong. We don't have the time, but we can go by one. We have very strong investors from the industry, like the former CEO of General Motors, Rick Wagoner, and many other industry leaders that join and add a lot of value. We are raising now $5 million that, together with the revenues that start to be significant, and the grants can bring us to the next level, to the next scaling level. And this is, I'm happy if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer. Thank you.
My name is Nissan Maskil. The first time that we present the company, we explore it. So I'm happy to do it. Assaf explained what is a quantum and what is a quantum computer, so I can understand that everyone is expert on this, and now we can start. My background is I graduated the Air Force and the US Army Flight School and spent years in physics and industry, and in the last years, I established a quantum program in IAI in order to explore all the capabilities of quantum for quantum sensors, communication, and computer. In the last 3 years, we decided to invest in quantum computing after we understand what is the application and what is the benefit out of it. We believe that the quantum computer is supremacy with application that we can define today, not just all the others application that will be found in the future. So we established Qarakal, which is coming as a new company, established 1.5 years ago. And the vision that we are coming from is to have applied quantum computer superconducting that will enable us to gain out of the architecture, the uniquity of the co-design hardware. The meaning of co-design is to adapt the processor performance with the capability of the hardware. Why now? The reason that we are doing it now is that the fabs is mature or going to be mature in the next 2-3 years to fabricate the new chips that we design, which is the next generation. There is falling cost in parts, and there is interdisciplinary teams that we are working with. I'm looking on the efficiency of the current hardware we are familiar with, and we believe that we are going to be like the coprocessor, the idea of quantum coprocessor that will enable to gain all the performance of the quantum processing in the next few years. The architecture is unique, and we have modules. We come with architecture which is scalable, and it's something that we are believing that we can do it was via models and via doing the design of the qubits itself. This will bring us to competitive advantage in the next year. We already have a simulation that perform this, and it will be able to use this architecture for different algorithms that use for a variety of applications. I'm running very fast, just to cover and to be on time. We have talent team, we have IP, we have a couple of patents that cover it, and we have scalable engineering that will support it. This is the details, and the meaning of it. We have in the lab hardware that is working. We are doing the testing, And we know that we want to go on this roadmap from the chip that we already have operational and the next 3 generations that will enable us to come with a product in the field. The highlights milestones. We design and we fabricate in fabrication site a chip. It's operating. We already in the size of having application running in the lab. We have a full stack operating system that support it. And we have collaboration with universities and some of the companies. The team is a very talented coming from the industry and academy. Most of them have experience from previous startup, some of them in quantum as well. The market opportunity is huge, and I'm not going to details, and the business model that we have is quite unique in the sense that we believe that at the end of it, it will be a coprocessor that will enable to perform all the quantum computing application as part of a system. We are looking for this budget in order to develop the next generation that's after the current one that we are in process and integration. And thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm Sharir, I'm the CEO and co-founder of RelyOn. A few months ago, I came back from a meeting around midnight to the apartment here in Manhattan, and a man slept in front of the building at the entrance. I couldn't get in the apartment without step over him, so I didn't know what to do. I was a bit afraid, and I couldn't call my husband or my family in Israel or here in the US. Everyone was asleep, and it was inappropriate to call 911. So I waited a few minutes, and after a while, a group of people stepped by, so I told them, can you wait so I can get into the building safely? So I'm sure that you're all familiar with those in-between situations when you can feel unsafe or worried about your family members that maybe travel abroad or going out to a date or going with friends late at night. And you want to solve those, but you can't actually call anyone like 911 because it's not those kind of situations. So when we established RelyOn, we wanted to actually get this solution done by engage physical security companies. They are very well trained, well-known call centers available 24/7. It's private industry, so they can enable their people to protect other people, but they are mostly physical security company, human resource companies. So when we explored this industry, we understood they are making a lot of money. Companies like ADT, Prosegur, G4S, global companies that have a lot well-trained forces, that not technological ones, so they are not developing their own solutions, tech solutions, they are just selling their services. We wanted to provide them with a solution to sell to their people and customers and enable them to make more money by selling a new kind of product that protects people and not only assets. So we develop a product that integrates with their platform and call centers and enable them to enhance their human power in order to protect their customer base. So they can make more money and also protect people and not only the assets. The product is really proactive. It encourages the people to use the services of the security companies, and it also have 24/7 AI assistants that can help them to deal with those situations immediately without need to acquire new human power to their call centers. So they can make more money, but not to hire new people for these tasks. They are selling in a B2B2B or B2B2C business model to HOAs, communities, healthcare institutions, families, and more. All of those are real use cases we already have with our portfolio of companies that are working with us worldwide. By today, we had 26 life-saving cases in real time, hundreds of proactive cases that people just call the call center so they can accompany them home or outside or abroad. We have integrated with 7 global companies, including here in the US. We have 2 big security companies here we are working with. And we are team here, me, the CEO, and my co-founder, Natan, the CTO of the company. We're backed by both Israeli and American VCs, like Ronnie Venture and Ineffable. and advisors like Yoram Yacovi, a former CEO from Microsoft Israel. We are now raising 5 million in order to start our seed round and operation here in the US. We already have some income here in the market, and I'll be happy to discuss more outside. Thank you.
So I have a son. He's 16 years old. His name is Ori. He's very creative. In the last 10 years, his dream is to create a new bicycle, but a flying one. Okay, what he is doing, he don't know what to do with that, so he's asking his father, I have a master's degree in engineering, but still I don't know what to do with that, so it's not helping me, and I cannot help him. Now, this situation, I guess that you all have this. We are waking in the morning, we have an idea, we are walking somewhere, we have an idea. We always have an ideas. Now, ideas is a tricky one. Why? Because especially these days, if we have an idea that requires some digital things like images or app or website or something like this, we have a solution. But what will happen if you have some hardware inside or some deep technology inside? Most of these kind of ideas are just disappear in the mind of the inventor. You don't know what to do. And then the idea just trapped inside some walls of capital, of time, complexity. We don't know what to do with that. And this is a crucial pain, and this pain, I know it firsthand. In my first startup, my partner and I, we have a great idea how to change the world of a smart home, and we took that and we waste month to develop with an army of engineers and a machine time just to stand on time. But still, we have blocked with the same walls of money, of the development, and in the end, we didn't got the blueprint, the prototype. So we keep work on that, and with the prototype that we got at the end, we still have the next steps, how to protect it, how to market it. So in that time is the time that we invent to take it to the next step and founded IDEEZA. IDEEZA is a ChatGPT for physical product. Think about like typing something and getting a product. It's the infrastructure of the real industrial revolution. And this revolution is personal, is decentralized, and it's instant. You are getting something very fast. And in the last 7 years, this is the program that we are working on, and it's working. I will show you soon. With this tool, we are giving some kind of superpower to the inventors, and they can take their ideas to the next level. How it's working, it's standing on 3 pillars. The first one is the imagination engine. It's working exactly. We know how it's working today in other fields, so it's the same. You are typing your idea, taking your thought inside. We are using engineering rules and to generate a new product, new and unique product after a few minutes. Now this product is include everything, all the hardware engineering, the code, and the 3D design, so you are getting a real product. Now, real product in this way, it's a blueprint. Blueprint is the files. What we are doing with this, with the files, we take it to the second level, it's the ownership. We are using deep blockchain technology to protect and to give verification to the user, and then he's getting some kind of ownership recognition of his invent, again in another press of the button. And the third one is the market. Okay, you have a product, we have a marketplace where the user, in the step after, he just can present and he can post his product outside. These examples are some real product that someone on the platform developed. You can see, you can feel some of them that is comfortable to you, and you can just purchase it. The opportunity is very big. We are standing in the middle of a generative AI revolution, and product engineering, it's a big one by itself, and the creator economy, all the do-it-yourself and the makers, and IDEEZA is in the middle building this kind of economy. Our momentum is real. We have a big team, granted patent here in the States, in China, in India, and more places. And we get grants from Microsoft and Google. We are running with them on their cloud. Our business model is a simple one. Again, we are running with our users. So it's a freemium SaaS. The user can come inside, they can test the platform for free. And if he see that the result is, he like the result, he need to pay, and then he can save his IP. And when he's taking it to the marketplace, we have a transaction fees. So before I'm finishing, our vision for that is exactly like the operation system for the human creativity. So you can take it inside, come in with thought, and then no matter if you are a maker in the garage or some adult in the kitchen, or even my son, you can take it to the real life. So for those that for those that looking on the future and seeing it in the same thing like us, I'm here and we'll be happy to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And after seeing 200 presentations, I'm always amazed by their creativity and forward thinking. Toda rabba. And they're outside to meet with you once we break. We now have two last presentations before we take a short coffee break and continue with the rest of the day. The first will be Why Invest in Israeli Innovation, that is led by White & Case. I would like to call onto the stage Joel Rubinstein, who's a partner of White & Case here in New York and a good friend of ours, and Ari Kleinstein, who's the co-founder and from Glilot Capital. Following by their fireside chat, we would like to invite Dr. Nimrod Kozlovski, who was with us when we began this whole enterprise and has been, again, a great supporter and good friend of the Restart idea, who's the founder and CEO of Cytactic, and he'll be speaking about the new arena of cyber threats and how to respond relating to this world. Please, Joel, you can take a seat. Relating to all these worlds of quantum and blockchain, robotics, autonomy, and how cyber is threatening them. And then we'll take a break, but I'll be back on stage.
Thanks, Mike. So as Mike said, I'm Joel Rubinstein with White & Case. We're very, very happy to host this conference this year. We've been hosting these conferences both here and in London and I think in Berlin in the past year. So it's great to see everyone. For those of you not familiar with White & Case, we're a global law firm. We do a lot of work with Israeli companies, both with directly representing Israeli companies as well as representing investors who invest in Israeli companies. We actually have represented the State of Israel recently in its global bond offering, so very supportive of hopefully continuing to increase the cross-border transactions between the United States and Israel, as well as in the Middle East. We have a very strong presence other places in the Middle East, which we've had for many, many years. We did actually the Saudi Aramco IPO. So hopefully, as the Abraham Accords hopefully will expand, we can be part of that. Joining me today is Ari Kleinstein. I'll let Arik introduce himself briefly, and then we can get into our chat.
So, hi, good morning or almost afternoon, everyone. I'm one of the two founders of an Israeli venture capital fund called Glilot Capital. We are almost 15 years on the road now, starting in 2011, and we are early stage investors in mostly enterprise software companies. As a background, I've been doing it for pretty much 30 years now. I was part of the Israeli venture industry from the mid-90s. I lived for many years here in the States, actually not far away from you, where you live, in New Jersey. Returned to Israel in 2010 and started Glilot. Glilot, we are investing now from our fifth seed fund, with a record of about 61 portfolio companies that we invested in, 23 exits, and we always look for more opportunities.
So the seed funding obviously has become, very, very challenging for a lot of Israeli companies, but of course, on the other hand, a key in many cases for them to be able to get to the next place. So you probably see a lot of opportunities. what is it that you look for? What are the key characteristics, both in terms of the company and the management teams that you see?
So the last, I would say, 2-3 years, actually, since the beginning of the war, actually, we see like the numbers improving all the time. The number of Israeli startups raising their seed round is actually going up. The total investments in early stage, also the numbers are increasing significantly. There was a correction, if you remember, after 2021. Numbers went down, now they're back again, and actually Israel is doing better than Europe and even the US. The thing about it is that most of the investments are going to actually a very small number of fields, which is pretty much what we do, a lot of cybersecurity, a lot of AI. If you are a founder in other areas, it's true that you might have a more challenging time to raise funds, but it's still a very active market. The numbers improve all the time. What we're looking for, we invest mostly, I would say about 60% of our portfolio companies are in the cybersecurity area, which we were like the first fund to invest in cyber starting from 2011. Obviously, it's a field where you cannot start a company unless you have a very strong background. So it's kind of like high barrier to entry. But in Israel, it's the case where there are a lot of founders with this background. So we see a lot of significant deal flow. Also, in general, enterprise software now with the AI revolution of the last 2 years, obviously is booming. So Israelis are very good about it as well. We are, as seed investors, looking for, obviously, every VC will tell you that they're investing in a team. In our case, in most of the cases, the team comes with a very strong, deep technology background.
And so when you first get introduced to a company, and there probably isn't necessarily a typical, but like how long would it take generally for you to make that kind of decision? And are there situations where there were teams that you met or companies that you met that you maybe were not so interested, but they were able to somehow win you over? Like, what is it? What is the cycle like, and what does it take? And persistence, let's say, on the part of a company.
So there is really no one recipe. Sometimes we hand out a term sheet 3-4 days after we meet the team. If they fit exactly what we're looking for in terms of the quality of the team, what they do, if it matches also the way we see the market and the opportunities. But we had also cases where we've been in touch with the team for months, and actually we helped them crystallize, ideate until they were ready to get funded.
So obviously and then the whole genesis of these conferences has been after October 7th and how things have changed. And certainly, as we heard from some of the other presenters earlier today, a lot of Israeli companies are even more considering incorporating in the United States or certainly having significant presence here. How are you seeing that? And also maybe just talk a little bit about the United States. Is a big place, right? So, we're here in New York. New York has been in the news as well recently. So what are you seeing both in terms of the companies thinking about it here, and then how do you think about the United States?
I think that was always the case. It's kind of, I like it when lawyers argue with each other, because the Israeli lawyers will tell you, you have to incorporate in Israel. There are a lot of benefits. It's easier. You're an Israeli company. At the beginning, most of your employees are in Israel, etc., etc., and they'll give you a long list of reasons why you should incorporate in Israel. And then when you talk to an American lawyer, you'll see a lot of reasons why to incorporate in Delaware. And the truth is that the history in the last 30 years that I know, it was always the case that some of the companies incorporate in Israel, some of them in Delaware, and it's all good. You have to be successful. Okay, that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter where your company is. You have to live. Then there are obviously consequences. If you're in the US, then it has some upsides and downsides the same way as in Israel. Unfortunately, in the last, I would say, 3 years, it became like many other things that were not political. It became a political issue. There was some movement, I would say, before October 7, around whatever you call it, reform or revolution or whatever, the legal thing that the government, the coalition tried to pass. And some people said as a protest, hey, okay, if this is the case, I cannot trust Israel as a safe business environment anymore, so I'm going to incorporate in Delaware. We know that now, the same as in this country and in Israel, politics is never really good for business. But I think that things are now calming down, and the decision is always like, I would say, when I'm being asked, I don't really have an opinion. I tell the founders, here are the pros and cons for each option, make a decision, and I'm going to support you. Anyway, we are pretty much indifferent.
Yeah, look, I think that if they're talking to you and you're funding them, and you maybe have other Israeli funds that are funding, then some of the reasons for being here are less compelling. If you can really get to scale and grow with local Israeli funding, I think some of it is, if people are really looking to U.S. investors, sometimes it can be a smoother path. There are certain tax advantages, qualified small business stock that the U.S. investors will get if it's a Delaware corporation.
Look, there is, it's true, but today there is a very large community of international investors that invest in Israeli startups. Many of them have a partner or a team member that is actually based in Tel Aviv. Many of them travel. Just in the last few months, my portfolio companies raised hundreds of millions of dollars from all the top-notch US funds. So all of them are used to invest in Israeli companies. They have Israeli law firms that you probably know all of them that know how to work with these firms. Also, more important than funding is what happens when there is an exit, right? And then, do big corporates know how to buy an Israeli company? The answer is, in most of the cases, they do. Sometimes it becomes an issue. We just, about few months, I would say 6 months ago, we sold the company to a German company, and it was the first time that they are buying an Israeli company. So obviously they took one of the law firms, very prominent law firms in Israel. I'm not going to mention the name, and it took, I would say, delayed the process maybe by 1 week, not more than that. And this specific company was also funded by the IIA, the Israeli Innovation Authority, so had to learn all these bizarre rules that they have there about what happens when there is an exit, etc., etc. Was it a deal blocker? Did it really significantly delay the deal? The answer is no.
So you talked obviously about the area that you're focused on, a lot of cyber. Nothing is static, of course, obviously over the years that you've been investing. How have you seen that particular sector evolve, and then certainly areas that come around that, and where do you see, like you said, there's certain areas, and other people have said this too, there's certain areas that are attracting a lot of funding. It's harder if you go beyond it. But, where do you see other, first of all, cyber moving for Israeli companies and others, and just, where do you see the trend more for other things that could attract more capital?
Cyber will continue to be a major field in Israel for the next foreseeable future. And the reason is that cyber is not a category that stands on its own. It's a derivative of what's happening in the information technology world. So anything that happens, if it's cloud, if it's mobility, if it's AI, will always have cyber derivatives, because the attackers are always looking for new ways to do what they're looking to do, which is either steal money or steal information. So you always have to refresh and always buy new technologies in order to be better protected. And in that sense, Israel will continue to be a great source. In the last, I would say, 6-7 years, I would dare to say that today it's like the largest source of innovation when it comes to cybersecurity, not just because of big companies like Checkpoint and CyberArk, which is now part of Palo Alto Networks, but many Israeli startups, and the talent keeps flowing all the time. So that puts us in a very good place when it comes to cyber. In general, I would tell every founder, no matter what you do, even if you're not in the software business, if you do like physical security, AI will transform pretty much everything. So definitely, if you are in the software business, we know that now you have to build your product again in order to incorporate AI capabilities. But not just that, you have to build your business leveraging all the technologies that are available out there.
So you mentioned a bit about the exit. Obviously, that's something, you know, when you're starting at the seed stage, it's maybe quite a while away, but you can continue with these companies, of course, along their journey as they grow up. What are you seeing in terms of exits? It used to be, you know, IPO was considered to be hachitov. I think we're seeing a lot more exits, and that's true globally, really, through M&A. Are you seeing, and the IPO market obviously has been challenged, certainly for Israeli companies, but as well for U.S. companies if they're not, you know, at a certain size and prominence. What are you seeing in terms of exits?
We'll continue to see a lot of M&A activity. We sold companies to pretty much all the big tech companies, starting from Microsoft, IBM, Palo Alto Networks, Checkpoint, etc., etc. And that will continue to be the case. I think that IPOs are still very, very challenging, and we've seen now in the last 2 years, few of the IPOs, not all of them were very successful. And they can also be, as we know, a death trap, because if you don't have the right market cap and you actually somehow miss your projections, the liquidity might be that low that for me as an early stage investor, it's kind of a graveyard, right? I cannot really sell my shares, and my LPs are not, my investors are not really interested to get some illiquid stock, even though it's public. So there are cases where IPOs can be successful, but M&A still are going to be, I think, the major path of liquidity. I think that now in the last 2 years, we see a very interesting phenomena where private companies are also on the buying side. Because before, let's say 4, 5, 6 years, it was usually the big tech that were buying Israeli startups. Now we see this phenomena where there are companies that are still private, but from a financial perspective, in terms of their growth, their funding, are almost like as public companies. So they are also on the look to buy. Because today, innovation is moving so fast, there is almost no way that you can keep ahead with the technology development and the competition, or unless at some point of time you start also buying.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that here too. Certainly, you know, and it's true in the venture side. It's true when you're talking about big companies in the private equity side. It's the liquidity afterwards, and we definitely see that concern about the ability to monetize ultimately, and also the private companies staying private a lot longer, and opportunities for liquidity even for employees in private companies. You see SpaceX, right? Like there's all sorts of ways in private markets people can do that, and that can help for Israeli companies too. So I think we're getting the hook here. So thanks to everyone for coming. Thank you, Ulrich, for joining me, and looking forward to the rest of the day.
I think I can start by summarizing what I'm about to say. This incredible conference you're attending today showcase some of the greatest innovation we're likely to see in the next 2 decades. AI, robotics, blockchain. Certainly we see in quantum will change the infrastructure of our society. A lot would be said today about how quantum would be the next generation of computing, how blockchain would be actually the way that we'll manage data and will manage the logical layer. There'll be a lot of discussion about how AI would transform the logic and would transform a lot of the intelligence on top of these systems. And we certainly would talk a lot about how we connect the digital world to the physical world. The discussion around robotics would be fascinating because it would show us that innovation would not stay in the realm of digital technologies, it would actually transfer our life. We start communicating more and interacting more with intelligence, physical actually entities, which will be the robotics. So we'll showcase all this innovation today. But one thing, as Avi Kleisten said from Glilot, every new opportunity also creates a challenge when it comes to cybersecurity. Because in the sense, the way that we create cybersecurity is that we take the existing infrastructures and existing tools and we try to overlay security on top. So without being too technical, when we had security networks at the beginning and we started connecting machines, they became vulnerable because I could actually now tap into your networking. So it requires innovation like checkpoints that would come and say, hey, I protect the network security. When we started keeping more and more of our data on the cloud, we realized we're changing the way that we store our data. It's no longer in our physical device, it's on the cloud. We need to reinvent cloud security. How do we protect access and data on the cloud? Every time we have a leapfrogging in innovation, we also need to rethink security. Because security, in a sense, is layered on top of this innovation. And the threat actors always try to find out what's the loophole, how I can take advantage of this new technology or new architecture in order to exploit it, to steal data, to steal money, to actually extort the users of that. So I'll show you at the beginning that each one of these technologies is already exploited. And as you'll have the conversation today about the potential, bear in mind there's also the threat. Sometimes the threat may be a consideration for us how to move forward, or at least to consider how we overlay security on top of this new architecture. But the one thing I'll try to claim today, and I'll do it shortly, is that one thing that we have not yet tackled properly in society is how we respond. We have done a lot of progress in how we try to prevent and detect cyber attacks, but we have not yet progressed in the way that we respond. And when the attacker becoming faster, more automated, utilizing AI, in the core infrastructure of our society, we can't keep responding the way that we do now. With humans, with paper playbooks, with slow processes. We need to change our response. Otherwise, the next cyber threats would be actually imminent threats to society. So my claim would be, just to give you examples, blockchain is already kind of like vulnerable and quite often actually the target of the threat actors. So some of the most notable attacks were taking over crypto exchange, stealing $500 million, taking over a contract, which is kind of like the way that you contract on blockchain, extorting actually the contract owners, and stealing a lot of actually cryptocurrencies and crypto wallets. We've seen actually billions of dollars of attacks on any major crypto exchange and crypto infrastructure. Same happens with AI. A lot we'll discuss AI today. AI is already being exploited massively by the threat actor. This week alone, we've read how threat actor actually was using Anthropic, which is one of the AI vendors, actually how to orchestrate a large-scale cyber espionage, assumed to be Chinese originated. But we already see, and I think Sam Altman from OpenAI is saying, probably the next wave of attacks would be taking deepfake and enabling actually AI to generate attacks, which would look very realistic to us, but fully fake. Something that happened to many companies that they realized someone impersonated as the CEO, someone impersonated as an employee, getting access to data or actually extorting them. Same happens, by the way, as we see more and more attacks that utilizing the capabilities of ChatGPT and generative AI in order to generate social media attacks and generate actually misinformation campaigns. A lot of attacks, we have not yet tackled how we prevent that. Same happens with the robotic devices. While we are excited about robotics actually becoming now also a source of attack. A smart car is a robotic, in a sense. It's a physical entity that is at the core having a smart, actually, AI powers. Currently, a lot of the devices we're using are just a sense of robotics. They don't look like the robot that we are accustomed to see, the person, but they're robotics. They've already been attacked massively by threat actor, both taking away kind of like access to the data, surveilling these robots, and also extorting bugs in their codes. Same applies for quantum. We've heard great presentation about quantum, but quantum is also going to change the infrastructure we're using now for passwords and security. The core of our economy depends on encryption, the way that we encrypt data and enable data transfer or transactions, assuming that we can keep data encrypted. Everything we do, from business transaction, banking, even kind of like protecting our secrets, all depends on encryption. Encryption is likely to be broken in less than 5 years by quantum, and we don't yet have an alternative infrastructure. How are we actually going to protect against attack that take advantage of the way that encryption is broken? So given all of that, we start asking ourselves, are we ready? Certainly, we're not ready yet in the prevention stage. We have not embedded security into the infrastructure. And we are not so good in detection because the attacks look different than the former attacks, and we need new ways to detect them. But one thing we are certainly failing is in response. Currently, the way that we respond is still a company is attacked, they're breached, someone is taking over the infrastructure. We start calling consultants. We start looking for paper playbooks that might help us to navigate through that. We're using kind of like slow human processes of decision-making, deliberation, and we're very poor in the way that we respond to cyber attacks. That's the one domain that hasn't experienced innovation yet. But at the same time that the threat actors becoming more sophisticated, more automated, AI-driven, attacking the infrastructure, we kept actually the response beyond. We've recently done a report called CRM, Cyber Incident Response Management. 70% of the CISOs believe that they are not ready for the threat that are imminent to their company. Most of them believe that they are not ready to respond, not aligning the stakeholders, not to mention that they don't believe that they have the expertise or have rehearsed for that. So one thing that Gartner, which is kind of like the leader in defining new categories of security, have recently announced a new need, imminent need in security, to redefine what they call cyber incident response management. The ability in a time of an incident, a breach, a takeover of computer, exploiting our networks to be able to respond in real time. I don't want to go too much into that, but the idea would be that we're shifting from paper-based, personal, slow processes into systems which are able in real time to coordinate the incident response, to put all the stakeholders, technology, intelligence, legal, negotiator, PR on the same platform, be able to automate a lot of these processes and utilize AI in the way that we respond. And core for that we need all the data about the incident to be centralized in one command and control tool. It would also comply with regulation. It would enable you to orchestrate everything. So that's actually the field that I'm fascinated about, and I'm a CEO of a company called Cytactic. We were the first actually to come with cyber incident response management platform. The way to tackle these new threats, because we've realized we can't keep dealing with the most imminent threat just by having paper playbooks and consultants coming manually to collaborate. So we've realized actually, and I don't go too much into that, but what you need is a way for you to coordinate all stakeholders, to utilize data to understand in real time the status of your incident, to be able dynamically to change your response plans, to be able to simulate ahead of time and to see how well you'll perform and assess maturity, and be assisted by AI to orchestrate large processes and to orchestrate actually collaboration. So we need a new way that we respond. I've used to be an incident responder, being called to be like the coordinator of large incidents when Fortune 500 companies got hit. And I came and there were dozens of consultants in the room, each smart and knowledgeable, but it was a chaos. How do you coordinate between them? How do you make sure that you follow the same plan? How do you enforce your strategy? How do you collaborate and in real time when it's the most sensitive time and your organization is a threat? What I've realized, the dynamic that I experienced of consultant paper-based trying in real time to resolve the chaos, it's not a way to go. So we have actually created for the first time the Crisis Incident Response Management Platform. It brings you not only the command and control tools, exactly as we used to do when we were officers in the army, that you need to have a one centralized command and control. We understand the situation. You team your actually all the panel of experts. You have a plan. You can follow actually their tasks. You can coordinate the messaging, the strategy, the disclosures, and all of that to be done in real time, dynamically, and to change as the crisis unfolds. So when you have an incident, you really need a platform that is able to bring control and order into the chaos. And one thing that I'll finish with, Most organizations wait for the incident to happen. That's very too late. The real time to prepare for the incident is now, to actually try to understand what's your threat, what you're exposed to, find out that you have your response plan and your teams, and practice now and see how well you'll perform. Because in security, we say you have to connect the people, the processes, and the platform, and to practice and see how well you mature. So regulation is changing and organizations are changing to start actually preparing for the incident ahead of time and see how well they'll respond. Thank you very much.
And we will start with two presentations that relate to AI in different ways. The first will be how to tell AI. And this will be by Assaf, the CEO and co-founder of Leave a Mark, good friends of ours, new friends of the Restart Initiative, who will be talking about how to tell AI, storytelling. And then we'll have a panel about AI, the AI revolution in PropTech. And we have with us three prominent speakers on this topic. Michael Ben Shimon, the founder and CEO of M&B IP, who has joined us in Silicon Valley and is back with us here today. Guy Vardy, the CIO of Silverstein Properties, and Silverstein have also been members of our community and supportive in many, many ways. And Alon Grobanos, the general partner of REVC. That will follow Assaf's presentation. Assaf, bevakasha.
Hi. Good morning or good afternoon, I don't know. We're somewhere in that place. You know, I made you a video that has many things that I believe in and my company believes in, so we can just warm up. So let's start with this one and then we'll move forward.
We sometimes forget. We didn't come here to sit in boring meetings. We didn't come here to make coffee or for the lunch breaks. We came to this world to do big things, to make a difference, to influence, or as we call it, to leave a mark.
Okay. Tough crowd. Don't worry. We're going to work on it together. So, I'm a storyteller, so let's start with the story. 10 years ago, I gave a lecture at Delhi MC. Now, at the end of the lecture, I had a conversation with one of the attendees. Later on, I realized that she was Dr. Orna Berry. She used to be the chief scientist of Israel and the VP Global Innovation for Dell. And this is what she told me. The day machines will replace you, the storytellers, will be the end of humanity. So, as you can imagine, her words gave me a lot of confidence that me and my business are here to stay. But then, 3 years ago, this guy tweeted those 9 words. Today, we launched ChatGPT, try talking with it here, and you know the rest. He set the world on an LLM fire, and I'll be honest, I had many sleepless nights, like my entire business is based on creativity, and now AI is here. But then, something interesting happened. I started to get many phone calls from many AI companies. We're an AI company, we're a cyber AI company, we're a fintech AI company, we're an AI company that builds AI companies, and they all basically said the same thing. We're in some kind of red ocean. Everyone is talking about AI. And how can we stand out when everyone claims the same? Now, here's a question. How many AI companies there are in the world today? Not talking about companies that has AI capabilities. I'm talking about AI companies that define themselves as pure native AI companies. How much? Hundreds, no, a bit more. Nobody knows. I think this will be the right, but according to ChatGPT, it's more than 90,000 companies. That's crazy, right? 90,000. Now here's another number. How many AI domains do we have today in the world? Like www, dot something dot AI. How much? 400,000. Okay, okay, 650,000. You know the funny part? .ai isn't a tech domain. It belongs to a tiny island next to Puerto Rico called Anguilla. Anguilla. I'm practicing my Spanish here. Anguilla, 15,000 people live there, 90 square kilometers, and 650,000 AI domains. So no wonder the people of the world have coined the term AI fatigue. This was actually the word of the year according to Oxford Dictionary. Now, it's true that AI gave us wings when it comes to creating content, right? But where's the problem? The problem is that our feeds, our inboxes, our timelines are all feel and look and sounds basically the same. Remember that when OpenAI launched their ChatGPT-4, the entire web exploded with those Studio Ghibli-style images? I think that this is one of the reasons that this gone viral. Say no to slop. Because when everything feels and looks the same, things are starting to blur. So this is why I wanted to share with you today a few examples that, for my humble opinion, aren't slop. Few things that we did, few things that we saw other people out there doing, and I think that they're doing a good job. But before we zoom into those examples, I think it's now time for a proper introduction. So I'll just say a few words, 60 seconds about myself. My name is Assaf. I used to work for many years in the advertising industry. I was VP of strategy in big agencies. And I think it was like 10 years ago when I met the love of my life, Sarah. Hi, Annie. How are you? This was actually our third date. She had an important presentation in Oslo. She needed to pitch her company for investors. So we worked on our presentation with a bottle of wine by the lights of the laptop. And somewhere in 4 in the morning, she told me, you know, I think there is a business in what we just did. And a few months later, we founded LiveMark. So LiveMark is a storytelling agency. It means that we help people and organizations to tell their stories. And when I say stories, we don't do TV commercials. We create stories that brings business results, whether it's working on IPOs, investor relations, marketing kits, fundraising, and more. We have a team of 30 passionate storytellers. We're proud to work with more than 500 clients, whether it's a global tech companies or all kinds of startups and cool VCs. We're a global agency. We have offices in New York and in Tel Aviv. And in the past 10 years, we've created a buffet of storytelling services, starting by crafting strategic narratives for companies, delivering powerful presentations for tech companies, helping startups to tell their stories for investors. And actually, in the past 12 months, startups that we work with have secured more than $350 million, so we're super proud of that. Our video telling department partnered with bold, creative startups like IDEEZA, helping them to tell their stories to their audiences. And we specialize in investor relations, so we work with more than 50 listed companies across the globe. 60 seconds. Now let's back to our examples. Now let's start with our first example for how to tell AI. So I call it uncover what's under the hood. And I think that we partnered with the AI21. A few months ago, they launched the Maestro, their new planning model, in a big conference in Vegas. And I think that what was interesting there, they didn't just stood on stage and say, hey, this is like a new era in AI, or this is like a new contract with AI. Together, we demonstrated how their system works using this simple question with a simple prompt, like how will revenue change from 2022 to 2024? That's it. And we show the audience how those words turn into code. and how their system evaluates all course of actions, comparing cost, time, and success rate, and then chooses the most optimal path in order to get to the right answer. Now, I saw the same thing when we worked with Lemonade on their Investor Day. We work on some of the content there, and I attended the event, and I saw Adina, their COO, the talented COO. She didn't just stood on stage and said, hey, we're growing, but keeping our cost line flat using AI. She demonstrated exactly how they use AI in their day-to-day. Let's watch it together.
Today I'm going to talk to you about that flat expense line that Daniel showed you beforehand. You may be wondering, what's the catch? What's the compromise? I'm going to demonstrate the answer to you. I'm going to show you behind the scenes of our technology that we've never shown before. And I'm going to show you things that no other insurance company has done before. At this point, our AI Jim starts having a conversation with Emily to gather basic data about the claim. And Emily tells us that Rufus has been sick. But luckily, he's feeling a bit better now, so we're all very relieved. Emily tells us that Rufus has been coughing. Now we need to assess whether or not we can cover the condition called coughing. Our AI Jim takes a look at all the medical records we have at hand, up to 12 months long of medical records, which can be extremely long, 100 pages long documents. Claim approved. At this point, Jim can communicate to Emily that the claim has been approved and that the money is already on the way. This is obviously a great experience for Emily, and she's over the moon.
Okay, so this is my first takeaway for today. Uncover what's under the hood, and the more specific you are, the better. People don't want to see, people want to see the engine, not just the paint job around it. Now, let's move to the second one. And this one is about being honest and creating trust. We had the privilege to work with Nadav Tzafrir, Checkpoint CEO, when he started working at Checkpoint. They had like a big conference in Vegas about AI and cyber. And where most leaders in the industry, they talk like they know it all, Nadav came with a much more modest approach. And instead of try to act like he knows it all, he was very honest and said, hey, AI is such a huge revolution. It's like a whole new dimension. So no one really knows, and no one really has all the answers. And I think that this kind of attitude can create trust. And trust is a very precious currency these days. He even told the audience that, AI could lead us to utopia. Maybe it could lead us to utopian future. And we even created a video about exactly that.
The world has gone haywire. Uncertainty, chaos, confusion. Where is it all going? Well, just imagine an AI apocalypse, the end of the human race, total extinction. We're all gonna die. Or heaven on earth. AI will free us from work and boring jobs. We could focus on passion and purpose and live the good life. AI will know us better than we know ourselves. It will predict illnesses and turn us immortal. Or it will replace us. Algorithms will decide who lives and who doesn't, controlling our destinies. AI will make knowledge accessible for all. It will be our creative partner. No, it will turn us into useless fools, incapable of doing anything. AI will help us be a better version of ourselves. Or, in 10 years, we'll be ruled by giant, super-intelligent AI robocats. Humanity's worst nightmare, or a dream come true. One thing's for sure. At Checkpoint, we're staying focused. We're security practitioners, not fortune tellers. And our mission is to be prepared for every scenario that comes our way. We are ready, always. Bring it on.
And we even took it one step forward. and instead of determine how like the future AI attack would look like, we let the audience to imagine how one of the biggest attack in history would look like with today's AI tools. Let's see a short part of this AI video.
Let's go back in time. 2020, SolarWinds, a state-level sophistication, a malicious update was unleashed. The payload? Espionage. 18,000 private and government entities were affected. The attack shook the world. Now, let's go to the future. 2025. Imagine the same attack. This time, powered by AI. Well, we're not in Kansas anymore. AI is beyond any human capabilities. It never sleeps or makes accidental.
Okay, I think that you got the point. And this is my second takeaway from today. In some cases, don't try to know it all. Just be honest. Sometimes this will be the best strategy for you. Now, our third one, it's about having some fun, because AI brings a lot of opportunities to have some fun things. And, I don't know if you ever attended like an investor day or an earning call. Well, it might be a bit boring, right? But not for Duolingo. Duolingo, instead of putting the CEO on stage, they let Lily, their bored teenage character, to talk with the investors.
To be considered in isolation from
This
a
is
substitute
Debbie,
for or
VP
superior
of
to our GAAP
IR,
results, and we encourage you to consider all
doing
measures
the
when
blah
analyzing
blah,
our performance.
yada yada
And
stuff.
now I will turn it over to Lily.
Thanks, Debbie. I guess. Hi, everyone. So Luis asked me to cover for him. Lucky me. Anyway, let's just get this over with. How'd we do this quarter? Pretty good, I'd say. We did way better than expected in all the important metrics. Since we did so well and we feel good about next quarter, we're raising our full year guidance. Matt's going to get into the details in a minute. He's into that kind of thing. And yeah, we're hitting our goals. How did we pull this off? The usual stuff. Product improvements and social marketing. It just works. And the grand finale, generative AI and automation. Yeah, that's the future, I guess. I mean, look at me, an animated character running this call. AI is going to help us be more efficient and launch products faster. Pretty cool, right? So we're investing in that stuff.
Thank you, Lily. So, uncover what's under the hood. Be honest. Sometimes this is the best strategy. And have some fun. Thank you very much. Stay connected.
So we're discussing AI, and we'll still continue to discuss AI revolutions in different components. And now we're focusing on PropTech, which is going through major changes. And as we do with all our panels, I would like to ask you, first of all, to introduce yourselves. What is your role and scope and focus in this ecosystem of innovation? And Michael, we'll start with you. B'kasha.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Michael Ben Shimon, grew up in Tel Aviv, living in New Jersey, a founder of MNBIP, a patent firm specializing in helping startup companies to increase valuation through strategic IP portfolio. Honored to represent top unicorns from Israel, including companies like Gong, Wiz, and many others.
Guy?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm running innovation for Silverstein Properties. We are mostly known as the developer of the World Trade Center. We bought the Twin Towers 6 weeks before 9/11. Innovation in real estate is a bit of oxymoron. Real estate is a very slow industry. We are very good at repeating the same formula over and over. If we would be an Hollywood producer, we are the one that produced Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3, Die Hard 4. Not so much about Die Hard 1. My job is to come with the new formulas. Most of them are going directly to the trash. Some of them are finding themselves as part of the franchise.
Excellent. Alon?
Hi, everyone. Alon Gorbonos, general partner and founder of REVC. Similar to Guy, I'm here basically to say the opposite. I think that real estate has a lot of opportunity, And I think that it's very exciting, especially because it's a legacy service industry. And kind of like building on what Assaf said, I think that AI is probably one of the most exciting things that are happening to a legacy industry as real estate. What REVC does is a venture capital. We invest in early stage in real estate technology. So we're covering property technology, construction technology, and real estate finance. We're very happy to back about 2/3 of our portfolio Israeli companies. I think there's exciting innovation coming from Israel, and we're going to talk more and have fun in this conversation.
Absolutely. So talking about fun, let's continue with you. And it's a question to all of you, but we'll start with you, Alon. How do you see AI changing the landscape of innovation in the fields of property management, construction, and everything to do with PropTech? Where do you see the big change?
Wow. Do you have 2 hours? No, I'm kidding, but let me try to summarize it. So I think that in some ways, AI is actually interesting because I think it's most interesting going into places where challenges are existed. I think AI is a fascinating tool that empower legacy redundant processes. And especially in real estate, it allow the employees to go and talk to tenant and spend more time being human rather than crunching documents, doing admin work, and doing back office things. It's interesting that I think AI is probably revolutionizing a lot of back office things, but also helping expedite and, in my opinion, eliminating not jobs, but eliminating bottlenecks. Think from real estate, where, to Guy's point, it's doing over and over the same things again, Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Die Hard 3. There is no better candidate than an industry that just repeating itself over and over again, because that's what AI currently is best of. Take what's redundant, let the machine do it, and focus on what's interesting. Focus on creating great experiences to tenants. Focus on building the top and most beautiful buildings that you can see and you can do without spending time on doing all the plumbing and electric and infrastructure and all the what we call necessary evil. And also in the financial world, let AI help expedite and help move capital faster in order to deal. Probably housing, in my opinion, is one of the biggest problems in the United States. We are about 7 million short in housing for the population that is growing. It won't be able to meet if we'll continue doing things as we're doing for the last 100 years. The only way to solve it is by leveraging AI and advancing the technology within the real estate space.
To streamline the processes. Michael, what do you see as the sort of focal point on this issue?
So I don't work with construction companies, but with innovator in the space. And there is a wave of innovation in PropTech in different domains, and domains in constructions and building, and I would say the back end for that, which is finance and regulating the compliance that is required to meet the standards. So AI comes into different forms of innovation. For buildings, we can see change from being reactive into proactive, meaning that a building, a smart building will include sensors and include some machine learning capabilities that can predict whether there's going to be a failure in the HVAC system before a human can think about it. So, we see a lot of new patents filed in this field around machine learnings, LLM to predict what is a good tenant, a bad tenant, predict the cost of construction, predict the cost of renovation. So it's a true revolution, what we see now.
And is there any sort of estimate of how that influences the bottom line? I mean, all this innovation definitely streamlines, but how does it impact on profit and the bottom line of things?
It will improve, and it should improve the bottom line. And the reason is there is a shortage in construction workers at the end. And I don't want to go into politics, but the wave of, taking, the immigration policies that we see now really put pressure into that. So what they're trying to do is to replace human with AI, human with machine learning, reduce cost, and rely less on people and more on technology.
Interesting. Guy, answer this question as well, but also you spoke about the traditional nature of this industry. So how are they adopting, how are they managing to bring in these processes once you've sort of described the big difference AI will make?
So there are two different angles to answer that question. The first one is the user. We don't know where the world is going, whether AI is going to eliminate jobs or whether AI is going to create more jobs. So the biggest effect is going to be what it's going to be into inequality, whether people are able to afford houses, even if the houses are cheaper, whether we need the offices, do we need less offices or do we need more offices? Right now, the future is bright because all the AI companies that Assaf mentioned, raising a lot of money and eventually spending it on renting offices from us. So please continue, but we don't know for how long. So that's, I think, the most dramatic shift. And if people are not going to able to afford a home because it's going to be just kinds of a universal income, we are going to see a very different real estate world on the other end. If we are going to adopt the optimistic view of you're going to have this robot that is going to, Rosie is going to do all the jobs for you, and it's going to lead to prosperity, it's also going to affect real estate. So that's, I think, the fundamental impact. Meanwhile, until we are there, if we are looking on real estate, effectively we are doing three activities. One, we do discovery. Where should invest, what's the need of the users, where there is an untapped opportunity, what's going to make this unit move, what's going to make this company move to our building. A lot of data crunching, quantitative, qualitative, AI is a natural fit there. The second one, we develop. We build buildings. And this is going to be very slow because a cost of mistake here is huge. So you wouldn't see anytime soon robots roaming construction site in New York. They are going to start with a smaller project, then they are going to move to a mid-sized project, then they are going to move to a big project, and only then they are going to be ready to prime time because the industry is very, very conservative, and the cost of mistake, because of the way that we finance the construction, everything is leveraged. It's going to be huge. So you spend 5 million on saving, but if it doesn't work, it's going to cost you 50. So
how long will that take?
I think it's going to take for a while. Not because of the technology, but because of the human element and the risk adverse. And the third one is once the building is ready, how we drive the occupancy, how we operate the building, etc. Here, I think it's going to be easier. On automating energy efficiency, etc. The reason for that is the bloody cap rate, which means that every dollar that we earn increase the value of the building 20x, and every dollar that we spend decrease the value 20x. So even 100K saving translate to a real money. So we don't need to wait for Rosie to build the construction. You can just automate one part and another part, and the effect is going to be dramatic on the bottom line. Still, it's a conservative industry. We want to see that it's working. We want to understand why, what happened if it's not work, what's the way out, who else is using it. But here, I think it's the first and the last one, I think, are easier outlet than pure construction.
Alon, when your companies, how do you manage to ask them to convince traditional industries to make a change with all the risks that are involved?
Well, definitely it ain't easy, because if it was, everybody would have done it. But I give you a few examples. So one, actually, to Silverstein credit, we have a company named Fairies that basically reinventing the home cleaning. And I think Silverstein were one of the first to open the doors for them in New York City. And I think what's interesting, or how they managed to convince, they basically turned an expense line item and turned it into a profit line item to the landlords. So I think to companies, once they manage to translate their impact into real financial gains, landlords are more than happy to embrace it. I think the second one is also by really creating a differentiated model. So another example, we invested in a company named IDEEZA, which operates here in New York City. And they're property managers. And I think the difference, they don't just provide the software, they also provide the management itself. And what's interesting is that 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, the company just started. Today is the fastest growing property management company based on Department of Building in the tri-state area. That's really the power of technology, taking a probably national property managers that took them 100 years to become what they become. Within 5 years, they surpass them. That's an outstanding pace and outstanding growth that, in my opinion, can only be achieved through technology.
Michael, we want to take advantage of your perspective because you have a very wide one, not necessarily only in property tech, and you see many, many companies come through your pipeline. Where do you see now the big opportunities that can really 10x processes and for companies really create a lot of benefit within the world of AI?
Well, in 2 words, agentic AI. That's, I think, the big opportunities for PropTech, and I explain why. It's a traditional conservative industry, as Alon and Guy mentioned, and it will take time for the stakeholders to adopt into new technologies. And not just that, you know, building a complex like that takes time. But where agentic AI can help, you know, if you want to buy a piece of real estate, you know, you need to speak to a realtor. You need to ask him to negotiate. You need to wait for a contract, bid offer, counter offer, closing a deal, and then into the closing part, title search, mortgage, all this process, or this entire process, I think and believe, can be automated using AI agents. So a cycle of months can be allowed closing in a day or days if you want to be more reasonable. That's a huge time saving. It will fuel the market. I don't think about 10x. I think about 20 or 50x on investment in these type of companies. The adoption of the market from, you know, relative, if you go into a construction company trying to convince them, it's less if you go to consumer or broker companies that can accelerate the offering of their real estate properties and allow clientele to close sooner.
Alon, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I wanted just to add one more thing, I think important to the audience. This is, many people think that it's in the sidelines compared to other verticals of venture, but let's just look at this week alone. We have Israeli Innovation, then they just raised $50 million, Tulu raised $30 million, LucasView sold for $500 million. It's all Israeli companies, all in a span of 1 week. It's very much, I think, in the forefront. It's just one of those verticals that it's worth to take a look at because it's not getting to the Wall Street Journal and TechCrunch and Calcalist per se, but it doesn't mean there's not a lot of capital flowing there.
Guy, following on that, I know that you have an interesting approach in the company to innovation in general with Silvertech, and also quite a bit of affinity to Israeli innovation. So maybe you can tell us a bit about the philosophy of Silverstein Properties when it comes to innovation and Israeli innovation in particular.
Okay, so we separate operation from innovation. So there is 2 tech organizations within Silverstein Properties. One, their job is to make sure that the lights in the building are going to be on and the elevator are going to run, and it's going to be extremely cost efficient. And their tolerance to risk is 0, not low, 0. On the other end, and their KPI is cost and ROI and uptime and all the boring stuff that you want to enjoy as a tenant in our buildings. On the other end, there is the Wild West, in which we experiment and we take risk and we don't really care about all these KPI and we break things and we move fast and no one really cares whether we are successful or not. And that's the organization that I'm running. And effectively, we are getting into ecosystem that we do not belong to because we are a very traditional, old-school organization. Part of our trick to get into from an old school to an ecosystem that we don't belong to, we are running a program called Silvertech Ventures, that help entrepreneurs grow their company. It's a very non-traditional vehicle. So Assaf mentioned storytelling. We don't have a good story to tell or a good metaphor, but think about it as a friendly environment in which we provide emotional, financial support to entrepreneur, rather than being a pure investor. It's happened to be that most of the companies in this program, and we have around 50, out of them, high 40 are Israeli company. And it wasn't by design, because we are providing an emotional support, emotional financial support to companies. There is a strong referral program or a strong referral habit. And the initial investors were people that we knew. So we brought them to the program, and they recommend the program to friends that they knew, which happened to be also Israelis. So we create an ecosystem without thinking that we are developing an ecosystem.
We are out of time, but I would just like a lightning round. If each one of you can mention one company or one initiative or one sort of startup that you see a lot of promise in this field. Alon, maybe we'll start with you. You mentioned 3 big ones that already made a round, but something that's very early stage with a name and what they do.
Sure, it's hard, you know, it's like picking which kid out of your kids you like the best, but I'll mention our latest investment in a company called Spatial.io. And what they are doing, imagine basically in the architectural journey, when the architect basically puts the structure together, the second stage is basically go and literally there's people that takes and draw lines of mechanicals, of like pipelines, of electricity, and all that job can be done today with a co-pilot agentic AI. And what's exciting about this company is that they're gonna basically replace the need for people to waste time on that and focus from an architectural point of view into designing beautiful buildings.
Michael?
So I'm biased, but my pick is On-Site IQ. I'm biased because I'm an investor and the IP attorney for this company. On-Site IQ, interesting story, an Iranian founder that was founded initially by Cornell Tech. The company develops a platform that converts images from drones to detect safety issues and in compliance with the standards. I think that now at the growing stage, and hopefully they will do a nice exit.
Looking promising. Guy, the last one.
A company called Validit, and effectively what they are doing is a phone-based lie detector, and it's look like a very strange big brother technology, but it has a real applications. We approach them after we have a tenant that ask the staff to refer to him as the pronoun should be Herr Hitler. He have a habit of walking naked in the corridors. And when the marshal came to evict him after 2 years of legal battle, he covered himself with peanut butter while he was all naked.
That's why you need AI.
That's why you need AI. So everyone talking about what happened if AI taking over the world, looking on some parts of the world, I'm not sure that it's a bad alternative. But we look on how we can do a better screening to people because the financial story is some of the story. And we reach out, Validit. We did a really interesting pilot with them on screening tenants. We also look on them on a wire transfer. When someone tell you on a video, please wire the few millions to my account to make sure that he's actually the person that he claimed that he is.
I think they presented in one of our previous conferences and they were quite very impressive. Thank you very much. Toda Rabba.
Hi, my name is Ofer Yehuda'i. So we heard about prop tech, quantum, cyber. Let's see where AI meets us, like actually us, in life, in the real world, at home. I'm going to talk to you about how AI meets wellness and relationship, and I will do more about myself just a bit later. But a quick show of hand, because I see we have a very diverse audience, if you are willing to share, who here met their +1, their spouse, their friend online? How many you have met? Okay, so we have a few. We have a few. Look, 20 plus years ago, dating someone you've met on the internet was considered kind of weird. Like you wouldn't call your mama and say, hey mom, I met this guy on the bar, online. Today, looking at apps, that's pretty much the only way Gen Zs, millennials, and pretty much everyone meet people. But it's not only that. How many of you have some kind of an Oura ring that tracks how you sleep? Come on. How do you sleep? So if you haven't followed, so Oura ring just raised about $300 million. It's this little ring on your finger, tracks how you sleep, and basically telling you, how are you doing? Maybe you drank too much, maybe you walked out too much, maybe you didn't drink enough. And more people rely on Oura ring to basically organize their life. And mental wellness. Mental wellness. God, we are in New York. I know I flipped the slides. We are in New York. And a couple of years ago, just about 8 years ago, nobody shared that they're going to see the shrink. We didn't see athletes promoting their favorite shrink on a bus. But something have changed. We understand that it's good for us. We need to talk about it. More and more high personality people talked about their anxiety, depression even. So now mental wellness is a huge market. And why? Because we talk about it. So what's happening today? I'm going to give you a couple of numbers. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to wake you up, okay? Listen, we are here in America. There are more than 100 million Americans right now struggling with intimacy, with relationship. And let's see if you have a good reading on what's happening. So 25%, I'm going to help you with the first one. 25% of people in a relationship in the US recently asked and shared that they have cheated on their partner. 25%, 1 out of 4. Don't look around you. The math works. It gets even trickier. 1/3. My co-founder over there, Tomer, he builds as we speak, knows the answer, but that's not really fair. Guys, in America alone, 1/3 of people in a relationship confess that they live in a sexless relationship. Defined as basically doing it once a year or less. Now, why is that? What's happening to society? What's happening around us? I mean, look, there is an app for just about anything, and we can find love online, we can work out online, we can treat our anxiety online. I have 4 kids. I have like gazillion apps to track my kids at preschool, everything. But to stay in love, to talk to my partner, nothing. Now, what people do, this is a really big screen. Please don't read the screenshots. Usually on a laptop, you can't read it. This is Reddit. If there is one thing you take away from this presentation, don't take relationship advice from Reddit. Please do not. Now, why am I here and how do I know all of this? This is me and my wife. We have 4 kids, happily married. A couple of years ago, I sold my company for more than $500 million, and I didn't know what to do next. So we got my parents to look after my kids, and Liron and I took a quick kids-free vacation. My wife is a yoga teacher. She's an engineer turned a yoga teacher. Best time of our life. Only 4 days, no showers, no dinners, no running around the kids, nothing, just us. And we had the best time of our life. Last dinner of the vacation, we were doing some shots, doing arak. And at some point, my wife looks at me and says, in Hebrew, but she says, babe, what happened to us? I mean, we are a great, loving couple, but why do we have to kind of orchestrate this amazing vacation just to remember how well we feel together? Why day to day it doesn't happily miracle happens just like your six-pack. She didn't say that. But why doesn't it just happen? And that conversation definitely left me hanging. But we've seen it before. I mean, you take a space that no one is talking about. Usually there is some taboo around, like we don't discuss it. You know, headway for mental wellness, hims and hers for men's health, and you build the tech around. You make it accessible, and people come and people spend. So in a nutshell, at Aria, we did exactly that for couples wellness. So we built an intimacy coach powered by AI to really help couples talk about the things we don't talk about and just make it radically easy for us as a couple, because my wife told me to invest in our love life. But this is not about us. What have we learned? And why is it so important to realize? Number one, here we are in this conference, we talk AI, maybe there are investors in the room, maybe we are on TikTok. Listen, consumers are still skeptical about AI. We went to the market leading with this AI intimacy coach that will improve your relationship, and consumers pushed back. They've pushed back. Yes, maybe they want an AI fitness coach, but when it comes to relationship and being vulnerable, it was hard for them. So we actually had to change to this kind of human-first approach. And what we've realized, it commands a premium. Consumer actually willing to kind of value your product and offering more, knowing it's not just AI. And we heard about kind of storytelling before and how AI slop everywhere. So knowing there is a person in the loop did a huge difference. Less relevant for you guys, but people don't buy blindfolds on Amazon. Ask me later. Anyway, listen, we saw more than 20,000 couples using Aria. And we thought, okay, we have this AI intimacy coach. They will come from LA. They will come from New York. They will come from San Francisco, like all those big liberal cities. No, it's literally everywhere. This is not an illustration. This is like everywhere. And why is it so important? Because when you build a product around AI, don't just think about your friend from New York or your Twitter buddy. Think about the millennial mom from Salt Lake City. Very different persona. So that's why it's so important to remember that AI makes a huge difference, but it's not all about AI. So earlier today, again, how many AI companies are there? I do not know what an AI company is unless it's kind of fundamental. Like, if you're building a consumer product, AI can be part of it, but you don't sell the AI to the consumer. You sell them what you want to solve. In this case, become a better partner. Become a better version of yourself. So I want to kind of end my quick conversation with an ask. We can build amazing products, all of us. We can fund amazing companies. AI will probably be a part of it, make it more efficient, make it more scalable. Don't forget the end consumer. Don't forget who you are building for and what they need. And in many cases, AI can help you, but AI alone is not the answer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rotem, thank you for being with us.
Of course.
We thought the most added value to a lot of the people in this room would be to track the journey of a successful, if I may say so, founder in his journey to start up a company here in New York with an Israeli workforce and from idea to founders. So without further ado, Rotem, can you please introduce Tavili, Fetch?
First. Yeah, finally an Israeli audience or Jewish audience. Tavili means fetch me, give me. And what we do is we connect agents to the internet. We're essentially building the new generation of the internet. If you think about the shift that is happening today, up to now people used to communicate to the web directly, right? You would go to Google, you're gonna send emails. But what's happening today, and you cite in all the other companies, people communicate to AI agents and they communicate to the web. And what it means is that there's a new layer, right, between the AI agents and the internet, which is fundamentally different than what Google had to offer up to now, right? Agents they don't care about how the website looks like. They don't care about certain images. all they need is quick answers, and that's exactly what we're building. Really.
So every journey starts with a problem, and then the vision of the solution. Can you tell us how you identify the problem you wanted to solve with Fetch?
Of course.
Tavili.
Of course. So look, what happened, if you remember like a year ago, you would ask ChatGPT, what's the scores of the game last night, or what's the weather? And the answer that you would get is, hey, my knowledge is cut off to 2021. I cannot answer that. And I said, it's stupid, right? Like, let's just go to Google, let's fetch the information. And I literally did that. I copy-pasted, and now the agent could answer. And that's exactly RAG. And what we did, we started with an open source, because I said, okay, that's a very simple solution to a problem that is pretty fundamental, right? You cannot build a lot of the agents. Think about a sales agent or a legal agent. You need to understand what's happening right now. They're doing exactly this type of searches that people are doing today. And we released an open source called GPT Researcher, and that was the first time that you connected an LLM to real-time data. And that went extremely viral. So very fast, we got around 20K GitHub stars. Not everyone here are developers, but that's pretty fast and big for an open source. And we got a lot of traction, and we understood that we're touching something sensitive. Now, what we also understood after the explosion of the open source, think about it. Every company is building AI agents. You're going to have legal agents. You're going to have sales agents. You're going to have marketing agents. And all of them going to do exactly the same things that you're doing. So if you think about the HR agent, they're going to go on LinkedIn to find talent. And they're also going to go to Glassdoor to check for the salaries, right? If you think about the legal agent, they're going to check for precedents online. So we understood how big this problem is and how massive it is. And we released a video. It's the first time we released an API that you can, for any developers, just connect in one line of code. You connect your agents to the internet. And now you can answer any questions in real time. Now, not only you get the real-time benefit of it, how many times did you actually go on ChatGPT, you got an output, and you went and checked if it's true or not, right? You went to Google, like, is it correct? So what you also get with Tavili is the grounding. Not only you get real-time information, you also see exactly where you got the information from, and that reduced a lot of the friction between human and machine in many of the AI applications that we're seeing.
Could certainly have helped some of my lawyer friends that submitted briefs in court based on erroneous ChatGPT answers. So one of the things that everyone in this conference has been talking about is Israeli talent and workforce. And a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So I wanted to ask you, as a segue, about your team and how you put them together, because that's a really cool story.
Yeah, so we actually started at Columbia University. I don't know if you guys know, but Columbia has like 200 Israelis right now, which is far larger than what I expected when I went to Columbia. And again, if you remember October 7, it was the time that we got hit by Columbia. And there were the encampments, you probably saw it on the news. Not the easiest time for an Israeli student to be at Columbia. And the good thing is that it brought us together. And I think this company, the way it founded was not related to that, but it definitely got us together and pushed me to collect a team from Columbia. So the core team was really people that studied with me there, super, super talented people. And the next step was we had the office in New York, but I also said, okay, like, we gotta have an office in Israel. Everyone I know, like the best talent I know is in Israel. So we also opened an office there, and the first thing I did was let's get the smartest people I know. I actually have the father of one of my first employees here, but I hired my team from the military, and that's how it started. Now, the biggest problem is how you grow and you keep this DNA in the company. And there are many, many benefits for the people that started it, all right? We're organic, it's my team from the military, it's the people I studied with for a few years, and we got very close together during the time of post-October 7. And you gotta be very aggressive about it. Aggressive is not the best word, but you gotta be actively keeping the mentality that we created as the core team. And it's something that I keep doing until today. So we grew, I didn't talk about numbers, but Tavili got from 1 to 10 million ARR in like less than a year, which is very fast growth for a startup. We grew the team from 6 people to around 60 people today in 3 locations in Tel Aviv, New York, Abu Dhabi. And the thing I'm proud the most is how we actually kept the values that we started the company with the larger team. And now it's not only Israelis, it's also people I brought from Canada and people I brought from Abu Dhabi and people I brought here from New York. And it's something very addictive. And once you create this culture, this very hardworking culture, very humble culture, every time I hire someone, I tell them, guys, I'm the worst at everything in the company. I'm the worst engineer. I'm the worst salesperson, the worst marketer. That's why I'm bringing you guys. Like, I can help you talk about the market, but eventually you're gonna do better, so come with me with solutions. And that mentality kept people addictive to the company. And the way we hire today is like, guys, just tell me who is the smartest person you know, and we just grow the circle like that. And we can easily do it until we're like 100 or 200 people. And that reduces a lot of hiring risk.
So just as a quick question, so if you hired all your team from the military, what happens when you need to go on reserve? You shut down the company?
That's, we hired a commander. So, yeah.
That's always a good strategy. I guess the next link when you grow your company after you get your basic team in place is investors. So tell us a bit about how you located your first investment, your first investors, the relationship there, any takeaways worth hearing?
So there's a big cultural gap between Israeli founders and American VCs, I would say. We're very true. We're very honest, right? And we believe that
blunt.
We believe that the way to solve things is talk about the problems very openly, and that's something that not all VCs here understand. It's very easy with the Israeli VCs. My first investor, Yuval, is just amazing. I open up every problem I have with him, and it's, again, like, that's how we solve things. If you want to openly talk about that, you cannot actually solve it. That's one of the main gaps. Now, VCs, if I don't like a VC too much and they ask me what you're looking for in a partner, I would say 2 types of emails: give me talent, give me clients. That's gonna be helpful, even the ones that I'm just engaging with. But a good VC is gonna be the one that I could brainstorm, because you can bring a lot to the table, right? You have eyes on the market. If my competitor is starting a raise, you're probably gonna know it because you know people in the industry. And I need to be able to get this knowledge from you. You also see the industry from a much broader perspective. We're focused on executing, and that's what we're good at. But a VC, especially with the Israelis that are coming here, I've met with the powers of the Silicon Valley, and it's insane. The money is flowing there. People have a lot of power to change things, and we're a team from Israel coming here and trying to execute. And what we do, I'm not sure if we explain how massive it is. We're building the next generation of the internet. You can look a bit about the category that was just created. It's the first time that there's something new coming after Google, after the 30 years that Google dominated the search industry. And there's a new industry, right? There's AI agents. It's a complete different search. And we need to fight with very big powers. And we must utilize the power of American VCs here as well. And they need to learn how to operate with Israeli founders and understand, how to talk to us, how to work on the problems efficiently with zero ego. And that's something that is, I feel the difference with American investors and Israeli investors.
Thank you for that. So, as an Israeli entrepreneur, a successful Israeli entrepreneur with a very successful company in the New York ecosystem, if I were to ask you to name one pro and one con for working here in New York in the ecosystem, what would you say?
You cannot do it otherwise. You gotta have presence here. Again, as I mentioned before you gotta fight the big powers. and everything is happening not only here, like in Silicon Valley. I fly back and forth a lot, and you cannot avoid it. Unfortunately, I don't like San Francisco too much. There's a benefit of being here in New York because you're kind of isolated. There are not a lot of AI startups like you have in Silicon Valley, and that creates an environment where it's the best place. Like, it's very easy for us to get talent here. In Israel, you gotta have this combination as well. It's not here or there. In Israel, the talent is insane. They don't even understand how good they are, in my opinion. Like, the amount of money I'm paying for employees here in the US compared to what I'm paying in Israel, I'm gonna increase your son's salary. Sorry. But again, like, the talent is insane, and also we have the power because that's our circles. I can easily hire amazing talent that I cannot actually do it here, and we have a lot of advantage. And for VCs, they need to understand that, because what we can bring to the table if we open R&D in Israel is insane. It's not even comparable to what I can execute here.
So to the last question before we wrap up, what's your vision for Tavili? Where do you see it in a number of years? Where do you see yourself in a number of years?
So that's actually related to what I said about how we started at Columbia. I think it started with a will to prove that an Israeli company, that you could grow the next Palantir in Israel, right? Usually there's a saying about Israeli companies that we exit early, and that's roughly what's happening. And many Israeli companies gonna grow to a certain level, and they're gonna pass it on to the big American corporate. We took a kamikaze motion, all right? And we decided we're going all the way. We want to build a massive company, a multi-billion-dollar company that's going to come out of Israel. And we're going, again, we're going big time. It's a different mentality. Once you're locked on that and you grow the team like that, everyone align on the mission, that's what we're going to do. And today we're leading our category. We moved much faster than the competitors, and there's an actual possibility to build a massive company coming out of Israel right here in the US. And yeah, that's our focus.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to us. Good luck with your vision. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, I'm Oliver Mitchell. Get set up here. I'm not smeared in peanut butter, and I'm not discussing intimacy AI, and I'm right before lunch, so lots of challenges here. And I also have a cold, so I apologize for the raspy voice. But I'm going to talk to you about robotics. I'm going to also talk to you about what I see as opportunities within the U.S.-Israeli landscape, and as an investor in the space, how I seek to maximize those. So a little bit about me. Can you all hear me okay? Awesome. So I've been doing this a long time founder, operator, built companies, sold them to big multinational organizations. I've been involved within my own investment vehicle, where I had a number of exits, including Novacure, an Israeli medical device company that went public, trades today about $3 billion market cap. AI ad tech company called TripleLift that got bought by Vista for $1.4 billion. Exobionics, a robotics exoskeleton out of UC Berkeley that also trades on the NASDAQ. And I've been involved in 3 funds at FF Venture Capital. And today, after October 7th, I want to really dedicate all my resources to bolstering the Israeli ecosystem and to launch an Israeli fund. And so that's what Arkenstone Capital is about. This is not a pitch. I'm not going to solicit, but I am going to tell you how I see the landscape. And before doing that, I'm going to share with you some insights about robotics. This summer, I published a book called A Startup Field Guide in the Age of Robots and AI. This is Benny's copy. If you like a copy, come see me afterwards. I'll send you one. And just give me your card or write down your mailing address. And I'm also an advisor to a humanoid robotics startup in Houston that is working with Hyundai for shipbuilding, Hyundai HD. That's actually a really good segue. So I'm going to talk to you about some insights from the book, I do like book sales, so if you don't want a free copy, go to Amazon and buy your own copy. Really, in my book, I talk about how to take your idea from napkin drawing all the way to IPO. It's not me that's saying that. I interviewed 30 great luminaries in the space, like Rodney Brooks, who founded iRobot from the MIT Queso Lab, all the way to the stock exchange. People like Nick Radford, who ran the Robonaut program at NASA and launched it to the ISS, and now is the leader of Persona AI. But let me just take a step back. Some of these are my portfolio companies. Some of them are companies that are featured in the book. One of them is Kiva Systems, which was founded by Mick Mounts. And as I said, I've been doing this for quite some time. And before there was Kiva, there was Webvan. Who remembers Webvan here? So Webvan, okay, got one hand. That's really, guys, I know there are contemporaries my age who were around in the dot-com bubble. Webvan was one of the greatest dot-com busts out there. They had an IPO that raised $800 million. They built these beautiful distribution centers. They were predecessors to Instacart for online grocery ordering. And really the first one to open up the box and to take out that ragu tomato sauce and marry it with that pasta and ship it to your door. But two things happened. They didn't do enough customer discovery to know what people wanted. They invested in these beautiful distribution centers. And basically what Mick said, who was running distribution for them, who was the engineer there, they're basically taping $20 to every box that went out the door. They went bust. But Mick Mounts, after that experience, said, you know what? How can we solve this problem? And that's the first rule. You don't start off saying, I want to build an AI company, right? You start off saying, what is the problem? And what's the best tool in the toolbox? And Mick said it was a robot that could bring the shelving to the picker. And sure enough, he built the company very quickly, did the top 10% of all e-commerce companies, including Zappos and Diapers.com, which got bought by Amazon, very good. You get an A for participation. And for $775 million. Within about 6 months, it paid for itself. That year, Amazon shipped $2 billion worth of goods. And it is the centerpiece of Amazon robotics, and you can see it there. We have a company in our portfolio that works with all the shippers out there, FedEx, DHL, UPS, called Plus One Robotics. And if you've ever been to, you know what is the busiest airport in America? At night. Close, Memphis, because that's where FedEx is at. And there are planes going all night long. It's a very cool thing to go see it. And come Christmas time, there's a matrix there, and it gets backed up with packages. They can't hire enough people. In works robots distributing all the packages and depalletizing all the items. And that's what Plus One's doing. They're worth today about just shy of about $500 million. They're in the FF portfolio. You know, drones are obviously very big in aiding the warfighter out there. That same technology, when we talk about dual use, can be delivering packages. And within the FF portfolio in the UK and also in Dallas, they're delivering food. This was actually during the pandemic, delivering pharmaceuticals. You know what the number one thing that gets ordered, though? Come on, guys. I know it's right before lunch, but coffee. So that's kind of interesting. So an Israeli company I sourced out of the Technion called Civ, first Civ Robotics, and then pivoted to Civ. So it's first called Civ Drone, pivoted to Civ Robotics. Does autonomous surveying and construction tech. It was just mentioned this week in an investor call because the CEO of Trimble mentioned them on stage at the Dimensions conference. They're an investor in the company, as well as NVIDIA. It was mentioned with NVIDIA as well. They're growing fantastically well. They're enabling all the development of solar farms in the U.S. and also internationally, like in the Gulf states and in Europe, as well as data centers out there. And then taking, another approach from the FF portfolio is Burrow, that works in turning orchards and vineyards into Amazon fulfillment centers, enabling people to pick all the goods, but aggregate them into one central location. So that brings me to humanoids, right? Everyone's like, well, the world is built for humans. Why can't we bring in a humanoid? Don't you want a humanoid in your home to do the dishes? I think, when I think about robots, there are, as I say up there, 5 ingredients. Wow, everyone else went like 20 minutes over, and you give me the 5-minute warning. Okay. So that I think, it needs high utility, high reliability, and payback. Obviously, you need a moat, and you need customers. And so when you think about a humanoid, what is the best opportunity? It's dull, dirty, and dangerous, especially dangerous. There's a lot of jobs like shipbuilding. We used to build, in Brooklyn, a ship a week, right here in the U.S. Last year, we built all of 5 ships in the U.S., and China built 300. And so Persona AI, the company that I work with in Houston, they're working with South Korea, working with Hyundai HD, because they can't hire enough welders out there. But Elon wants to have a robotic nanny. We'll see what happens there. It's question mark. I could tell you that I'm pretty good at loading the dishwasher. I don't really need a robot to do that. And every home is different. It's sort of a black hole, but it's definitely something to watch. So what are the opportunities in the Israeli ecosystem? I mean, when you think about it, in our opinion, it's defense tech, it's cyber, it's automation, which includes sensors, IoT, drones and robotics, and AI and enterprise software. And it's a huge opportunity. And these have been battle tested. We're coming up with a new generation of technologies that are so cool. We're looking at stuff right now, AI that was developed for aerospace that can go into smart grids, or agentic AI that works with police departments to discover all the criminals out there, whether it's human trafficking or terrorists. And if you look at it, when I'm talking about robotics, you look at all the funding, the top funding, obviously cyber is number 1. But if you look to the left there, and you look at defense and industrial, and then you go to the right, the fastest growing segments in Israel today, this is from Startup Nation, last year, is in defense tech and also in the industrial space, robotics, mechatronics. And if you think about the US, the Department of War is bigger than most countries, their budget in the world. And as I said before, not only these technologies have been battle tested, but the teams have. They've worked under the most high-pressured environments and in the most stressful conditions. And they've built cohesion together. You don't have that risk of the team falling apart because they have been through hell and back, literally. And they've taken these technologies that they've done within the IDF, and we at Arkansas are only focused on spinning out technologies out of the elite units. Sarmakal, Shmona Matayim, Tapiokrads, the Shin Bet, the Mossad, and bringing them to market. So how do we see that? We have 2 partners out of the ground who are out of those units, who are officers, who are Miluim there, who are in Israel, and we source great founders, great companies. We invest a little bit of capital to build them up and validate them quickly in Israel, and then scale them up here. And we do that with senior fund management. So I have young boots on the ground, and myself and my partner here, Mitchell Kleinhandler, in scaling up here, and building great cap tables that can work with companies through longevity, great partner networks, and scaling them up in their go-to-market strategies, and such as yourselves as well in getting involved. As I mentioned, we have an awesome team. This is not a pitch, but if you want to talk to me about the book, happy to do that. If you want to talk to me how I see opportunities in the Israeli landscape, I'm also happy to do that. And we're out there. We strongly believe in marrying your personal affinity with your wealth and opportunity. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you. And I think I did that quicker than everybody else.
Okay, let's talk about food. Just before lunch, I'm going to show you how we use AI to turn this simple potato into an animal protein. So we're all obsessed with proteins, and I do hope, Mike, that you have enough of protein for all of us at lunch You should. And we are right to assume that the animal proteins are like the real ones, because for the food industry, these are the proteins that give us the texture of the food that we know and love. So we at Finally Foods completely disrupt the vegan cowless market because we are able to sell animal proteins at the same order of magnitude as proteins from the real animals. So that's a big deal, and we have a big customer, first customer for that. But our bigger news is the fact that we'll be able to sell them at even lower price than animal proteins. We are talking about casein. We're developing casein. Casein is not just a protein. It's the protein. It's a functional protein. We cannot get the stretchiness of mozzarella, the emulsifying effect of milk, the creamy texture of a yogurt without casein. Fermenters, fermentation cannot do it. They still struggle on the unit economics of simple proteins like whey, and these are the launches that we see now in Israel. Okay, there are 2 launches with whey. Cows currently are the only source of this protein, and they simply won't keep up. Demand is growing. Every outbreak of every disease of cows does affect milk supply, and we simply do not have more forests on this earth to cut in order to feed the cows. We grow casein in potatoes, ours. We need about 4 single average-size potatoes to have the same amount of casein as in 1 liter of milk, enough to make 100 grams of mozzarella. We're going to cut this number to 2 and then get to the cost advantage that I mentioned before. So how do we do this and how we use AI? We actually use an AI platform that was developed for over a decade. It has sophisticated software modeling tools. It was not developed by us, developed by a company called Evogene, a traded company on the NASDAQ and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And this interactive platform sits on an enormous tera-sized database that basically includes all the DNA, RNA, and proteins in the world on the animal side and plant side. So we take the genetic sequence that the cow needs to make casein and introduce only that sequence to the potato. Once that's done, the potatoes are grown in an open field like any other potato. That's our factory. And then we harvest the potato and extract it using existing industrial methods, pretty much like starch is extracted from potato. We were only formed 18 months ago and already achieved all our key technological milestones. But what is most important is the money, and we do have our first paid agreement with Tara. Tara is the 3rd largest company, dairy company in Israel, owned by Coca-Cola Israel. Actually, it's the 2nd investment of food company because we were formed by Strauss, but just Tara gave us another offer, a better offer, and we are under NDA with the biggest brands that you see in the supermarkets here. We still have $450,000 open in this pre-seed round, same terms as Coca-Cola Israel. If that's relevant, I would love to talk. Casein is only the first protein that we are developing with this system. We can make hemoglobin for meat, albumin for egg, and 2 more that we have yet to identify, but I'm fanatic on focus. So for now, casein is the only protein that we're working on. About the team, so Finally Foods is my 2nd startup. The rest of my personal life, you can read in a big article about me in Israel's leading women's magazine, because yes, I have 2 sets of twins, and it's my 2nd startup, so they thought that it's a very nice story. Basia, the co-founder and CTO, was the VP R&D of Evogene, the company that gave us the technology, and we have a team of experienced people with a lot of hands-on experience to do the plant design and the extraction. I want to finish with some Zionism, and I know that Next October was part of this initiative. Next October matches startups because we are the startup nation to Fallen. And we are privileged to commemorate Boaz Avraham. He was a farmer. I promised myself I will not be emotional. He fought in Nir Yitzchak to defend his kibbutz on October 7. He grew potatoes. His family comes to every single planting day that we have. We had our second one, and larger field trial planted 3 weeks ago in Otef Aza. So we're an Israeli technology that was formed in the war and planting an Israeli potatoes for a better future. And I am hopeful that we, all of us here, are going to restart Israel because we so deserve it, finally.
Hey everyone, my name is Ron Kurbs and I'm the founder and CEO of Kidas. We protect people from the most sophisticated scams. I see around here a few people drooling. I don't know if it's because I'm presented after the food tech or before lunch, but I'll try to keep you entertained. So how does a typical remote hiring situation is looking like in 2025? So our friend Yoav just moved from Austin to Austin, Texas from Tel Aviv. He doesn't know anyone, so he posts on LinkedIn that he's looking for a new job. A few days later, he gets a message from a recruiter on LinkedIn. She says that she's working for an AI company called Kidas. They have locations in New York, they have locations in Tel Aviv, they have offices, and she thinks that he's going to be a great candidate for a new position at the company. She suggests that he jumps on a quick call with one of the employees of the company. He's connected to Jenna. Jenna is an employee at Kidas. She leads trust and safety. She has a legitimate LinkedIn profile. They even have mutual friends. So he just jumps on a quick Google Meet call with her.
So can you tell me about a project you've worked on recently that really pushed you outside of your comfort zone? What was challenging about it and how did you handle it?
The interview actually went really well, and she's suggesting that he meets Amit Jungman. Amit Jungman leads the machine learning team at Kidas, and basically for a deep dive tech interview.
Yeah, thanks. That makes sense. Could you walk me through how you design a machine learning pipeline from like early data pre-processing to production level model deployment?
All the interviews went really well, and he got an offer. He gets a message from the CEO, hey, we really like you. We want to offer you a job at Kidas. We're going to send you the contract. He signed the contract, and of course, he gets the HR form that he needs to upload and fill in his details for Gusto, a pretty typical payroll system for young early-stage startups. But the day after, he wakes up to a nightmare. He just realized that $4,000 were stolen from his own bank account. And he doesn't really understand what happened. How could it happen? Do you guys understand how it happened? So let me show you how it happened. So the recruiter that reached out to him, she said that she works for Kidas. But anyone on LinkedIn can say that they work for Kidas. So no one validated. And the call after that with Jenna and Amit Jungman, they are real people with real LinkedIn profile, but it wasn't them. It was deepfake. The email he got from the CEO, which was actually me, that's email impersonation. The email address is almost the same address, but not the same one. And the Gusto form that he received, that was website spoofing. It wasn't a real system. He just gave in his bank details to a scammer. And that's how the funds were stolen. You think that it's a rare case, it's not going to happen? So look to the left and look to the right. Most likely, one of the people sitting in this room, more than one probably, was scammed. Because 96% of the people in the US receive scam messages on a weekly basis. The typical and average scam steals $1,200 from the typical person, and $12.5 billion is stolen every year, leaving people with anxiety and stress about those situations. But the reality is that most systems out there are connected to either your email or maybe you get a scam call on your iPhone, but they don't protect you against sophisticated cyber engineering, social engineering. And that's what we do at Kidas. At Kidas, we protect you from all of the channels that you can receive scams from, and we combine the information. In order to do that, we connect to your SMS, to your voice calls, to your emails, and we even provide you with a chatbot that you can consult with. This way, we can detect the most sophisticated scams out there. Our biggest advantage, we're an organic team coming out of 8200. We work together on text analysis as a team, and we're now doing it again at Kidas. We started doing those things for gaming, scale it to more than 1 million protected users, analyzing more than 100 million conversations, and partner with companies like Comcast, Intel, and Aura to launch our solutions. In 2025, we won the AI Breakthrough Award for innovative gaming security, and we also received the grant from the US and the Israeli government. Now, we're scaling what we've done in gaming to other product lines, to mobile, to SMS and voice calls, and we want you to be part of this journey. If you're interested to learn more, I'm here after this call, after this presentation. Come talk to me, learn about our team, learn about technology, and learn how to make the world safe from scams. Thanks.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Sivan Teila. I'm the CEO and founder of Onyxia Cyber. We're an AI preemptive cybersecurity defense platform, and I threw here so many buzzwords, so let me explain. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I started my journey in the Israeli Defense Forces, served for 10 years as a cybersecurity officer, and was the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, for the Research and Analysis Division. I retired as a captain, and then I worked for other defense industries and companies in order to help them build security programs and understand better how to protect themselves. At some point, I joined a company called Perimeter 81. That's where I met my CTO and my VP of marketing, and we developed Zero Trust Remote Access Solution, a company that eventually got acquired by Checkpoint for $490 million. During our time at Perimeter 81, and after many years of experience in the security industry, I realized that it's becoming very hard not just to keep up with all the security solutions that we have in place, but also to keep up with the data that we have within those solutions. And in this age of AI, and as we know, AI is only as good as the data behind it, we can really leverage this data in order to do amazing things, including predicting the future. And when I'm saying predicting the future, I mean potentially predict exposures before they're becoming critical and putting companies at risk. On top of that, we see that we have new regulations that require companies not just to disclose security incidents in 4 days, for example, but also disclose security programs and strategies. And that puts a lot of pressure and personal liability on security leaders and also board members. And that's where Onyxia comes into play. The way it works is that we're integrating with the existing security stack, and we help companies put some context on top of the data that we collect. We help companies optimize their existing security stack, generate reports in order to align with compliance requirements, and on an ongoing basis, improve their operational efficiency. Our vision is to become this 360 preemptive defense platform and allow companies not just to predict the future and adjust their defenses accordingly, but also make sure that they're getting insights on an ongoing basis. And I often say that my dream as a CISO was to be able to wake up in the morning and, like, I'm asking Alexa, how is the weather today? I wanted to go to one place like Onyxia and ask, what are the top things I need to focus on today? What are the top things I need to be afraid of today? And based on that, to prioritize my actions and my team's priorities. With that, in terms of our leading use cases, so as I mentioned, we help companies optimize their existing security stack, remediate things that are not in silos, but prioritize things across the board. We help them generate the reports that they need. And just to give you an example, we had a healthcare company that we're serving that got breached by they had a breach, and then they had to prove that they took all the actions needed. And post-breach, after they managed the crisis, they realized that they needed to prove or had a way to prove that they took all the actions needed to protect the company. The only place where they were able to go and collect those evidences and generate the reports with the context on top of it was Onyxia, and we basically helped them to reduce a fine from close to $1 million to less than 100K. You see here some of the names that we can disclose, but we serve very large companies in the United States. We have a very strong use case in healthcare companies, critical infrastructures, and public companies that are under the new regulation of the SEC. We also added here a client story, and in this case, CWT is a traveling agency that got acquired by Amex, and we helped them through the due diligence and the transition to align their defenses with all the new potential threats that they had during the acquisitions, but also to go through the due diligence process and to make it successful. We raised till today, we started basically 3 years ago, raised $11 million until today. We keep raising, and hopefully soon we'll kick off our next round. And we met all of our metrics so far. So I would love to connect with you, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here.
And to start, kick it off, these two last sessions, I would like to invite Jordan Fried, the founder and CEO of Fried LLC, for a conversation about crypto, Bitcoin, and Israel. So, Jordan, as we do with all our speakers, a short introduction about you, your journey, where you are today in this field of crypto, blockchain, and investments in general.
So I'm here. Fried LLC is our investment company out of Puerto Rico, where I currently live. But I spend half of the year in Israel and the other half of the year in Puerto Rico. Maybe I'll just kind of back up and say, before we recently launched a company called Zeus, Z-O-O-Z, on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, which is Israel's first Bitcoin treasury company. But I think it's interesting how I ended up there. I took a non-traditional path. I went to Israel on a Taglit trip. I'm not from Israel. I took one of those free trips. Fell in love with Israel. Thought I wanted to move, but I wasn't quite ready. The year was like 2008. But it was one of those Taglit trips where we got to meet a lot of amazing people, like the people in this room. Founder of like Face.com, who had created this like tagging technology that later sold to Facebook. All of that. Dropped out of college. I moved to Budapest, Hungary. Started a virtual private network, one of the early ones in 2012. Sold the company in 2017, and then came to New York here, where I spent many years, and we started one of the first layer 1 blockchain protocols after Bitcoin and Ethereum in that new cohort called Hedera Hashgraph. And today that's a $5-7 billion company. So that was a lot of fun. Moved to Puerto Rico because of the tax incentive. New York's quite expensive. Puerto Rico, we don't pay taxes. But I like to say we pay the Zionist tax. So we go to Israel a lot. We do a lot of chesed, and yeah, Zeus is what I'd like to represent here today, which is the Bitcoin company.
We'll talk about that in a second, but you do a lot of investments today. Can you give us a bit of a spectrum of in what you're investing and the sort of magnitude of the things that you lead?
So it shifted a lot after October 7th, right? I think as a Jewish American, and I'll say it in that order, I think a lot of us got very scared. I went to Israel 5 days after the war started. We chartered an Airbus A330 airplane, which I think we'll talk about. We brought a bunch of stranded, amazing Miluim from Los Angeles back, and I just went around and said, how can we help? What can we do? And I wanted to help in two ways. One is you can just give. The other is how can we solve problems in like a capitalistic sense? So after October 7th, we also started through Fried LLC a manpower business in the country. We bring foreign workers in to replace, I don't want to get too political, but some of the more violent labor, let's say, that we depend on in Israel. I think the backbone of any economy is a really good, cheap labor force like we have here in America. A lot of amazing immigrant workers that come and build great things in this country, and I thought Israel needed the same. So we have hundreds of workers in Israel now from Sri Lanka, from Thailand, from India that work in manual labor jobs. They don't program and build amazing AI apps yet. Hopefully Israel will allow that to change soon too, but they focus more on like construction. So it's all over the place, anything from that to like robotics, AI. We back a lot of companies.
In AI, for example, can you give us an example, AI, robotics, maybe a few quantum things that you're looking at or are invested in, and then we'll dive into blockchain.
Yeah, so the thing that excited me about AI, everyone was rushing to build these large language models, and I do think there are too many large language models. There will just be a few that win. But I got really excited about the infrastructure side of it. So I don't think the bottleneck will be with chips, and I don't think the bottleneck will be with data centers. Good entrepreneurs and capital providers will create the processors. They'll create the data centers. I think the bottleneck will be with energy. So we backed a really great entrepreneur who actually came and built the power plant in Puerto Rico and in Jamaica. He is on the infrastructure side. So he's recently signed. We provide energy. We're part of Oracle's new Stargate project. We're part of, we serve clients like Meta, some of the biggest companies in the world, but we actually buy out the GE and Siemens turbines and convert LNG into electricity and sell that to them as a service. And I think that's super boring and not nearly as cool as some of the other stuff, but it's really profitable and it's a really good business, yeah.
Picks and shovels. So speaking about Bitcoin, speaking about blockchain, I mean, the market has grown amazingly, but there's still a lot of skepticism, and we see the sort of trends. Where do you see it going? Are you a firm believer in this? Do you think it's reliable and it's a good investment looking into the future? And maybe speak a bit about predictions, prices. Where do you see this whole thing going?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin is one of the most important pieces of software ever created in human history. It's a C++ program that it's the softwareization of money, the continuation of what Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz wrote about at the beginning of the dot-com era, where software would eat the entire world. Software is eating money. And we have really bad money. For 5,000 or 6,000 years of human history, money was gold or silver. Our company's name is Zeus, Zeusim, in the Had Gadya song. You have an ancient Jewish currency that was a silver coin. But today, the money is not even worth the paper it's printed on. And that hurts everyone in an economy. You have many places of the world where they experience hyperinflation, and I fundamentally believe Bitcoin is the answer to that. Bitcoin is the only thing in human history that we can't create more of. We can always create more shares in a company, or you can always print more money, but you cannot print more Bitcoin. And I think the country that owns the most Bitcoin will become the richest country in the world. So my naive first thought was, hey, let's convince the Knesset and all of these great ministers in our government to buy Bitcoin. But I thought, hey, why don't we just do this in a public company on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange that's dual listed on NASDAQ, and why don't we put $100+ million of Bitcoin in it? And maybe one day that'll be billions of dollars of Bitcoin, and we'll just let the Israeli government nationalize it, and Israel will be the richest country in the world as a result. So,
hey, that's definitely a vision. Yes, I think it deserves a round of applause. Tell me a bit about Ethereum, altcoins. Do you see those things? I mean, no, usually it's divided between Bitcoin, digital gold, Ethereum, and other altcoins. How do you see that spread, and how do you see it developing? Are they all reliable?
So I need to be careful here because I created one of those other coins. It's still in the top.
One?
HBAR, HBAR. It's still in the top 20 coins in the world, and I'm really proud of it. But most everything else besides Bitcoin is complete and utter crap and shouldn't be touched, right? It's
Ethereum as well.
Ethereum, no. Ethereum is a Turing-complete computer protocol. It's like a decentralized cloud. You can host applications. People do build and use it, but it doesn't have nearly, I think, the enterprise adoption to warrant its current valuation. So for me, it's Bitcoin and then everything else. And fundamentally, I think for most people, the message is, I think everyone needs Bitcoin in their portfolio, from an institutional investor to an individual. And I would encourage those that don't have any exposure not to look at the other things, but just focus on Bitcoin.
Bitcoin itself, or through ETFs, or what would be the track that you recommend?
So
or strategy?
So this is literally why we built Zeus, not to be too promotional over it. I noticed when I came to Israel this summer. Zeus was built this summer, by the way, as a company. While I was there during the 12-day war, I showed up for a wedding. Turned out we were stuck in shelters every day because Iranian missiles were overhead, and my wife was not happy about that. But I was like, why is it so difficult to buy Bitcoin in Israel? And furthermore, people in Israel don't want to buy Bitcoin because you have to sell shekels for dollars. The dollar's down like 20% this year. The shekel's not. It's quite a strong currency these days. And then you have to take those dollars and go find Bitcoin. And then when you do it, how do you pay your taxes with it? The Israeli tax authorities, the Treasury is not giving clear guidance on this. It's a bit of a balagan, so to speak. But what if there was an equity on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange priced in agurot or shekels that you could just buy, and that company did everything for you? It held it effectively like an ETF or an ETP, and that's what Zeus is. So we did a pipe into this really cool company we found in Israel called Zeus Power. The ticker is ZOOZ, and we infused a bunch of capital in it. Of course, we bought Bitcoin over 100,000. Today, it's like at 89,000, so we're a little under, but we can afford to hold that Bitcoin at any price for many, many, many years to come because we don't have debt, we have a manageable burn rate, and we can bring Israeli institutions and individuals that exposure. And as you know, in Israel, many Israelis here, when you buy an Israeli a stock in Israel, it's actually really cool. They don't do this in America. They just withhold your tax obligation, so you don't really have to think about it later on. Your taxes are just kind of paid for you. In America, we have to self-declare that. How much of a capital gain did we have?
Now, there are entrepreneurs here and entrepreneurs that are looking at opportunities in this field. If you had to point them in the right direction where you see an opportunity to develop something interesting, meaningful, that will generate a lot of revenue, where are the fields that you think need Israeli entrepreneurship to get involved in blockchain, Bitcoin, and other things?
So energy is like the centerpiece of any economy, as well as like really good cheap labor. There's a lot of these people that sort of panic that say, hey, we have population decline in places like Japan, but I think a lot of that will be solved by the economic output that you can replace a manual workforce with an AI workforce. People here are talking about the agentic economy. That's going to deliver a lot of GDP. I mean, 20% of the US GDP is NVIDIA right now. So you can already start to see we're in this drastic transformation. But in Israel, I think we need to drastically embrace nuclear energy and move there. Data has become this oil of the digital economy. Whoever owns that data is able to monetize it and input all these large language models. We have to stop using third-party foreign clouds as a country, as a very small country, and build better data centers with cheaper energy in our own country. So our energy grid is pretty great in Israel, a lot better than Puerto Rico, where the lights go out almost every day. We have a generator, but we need to build far cheaper power, and I'd like to see Israel embrace nuclear. So today I told you about the LNG investment. That's great for right now, but all of these nuclear fusion and fission startups, we need to embrace those, and hopefully we win that too.
And innovation should focus on that. Energy, you said. And within the field of blockchain and Bitcoin, do you see any innovation which is required, or where there is an opportunity, a lack of solutions?
For sure. So every Bitcoin market, whether bull or bear cycle, has had a theme, right? We went from the explosion of Bitcoin mining companies, right? You have many publicly traded mining companies that literally create better chips and data centers that fight for the right to add a new block to the blockchain and win this economic reward. Then we had stable coins, right? Stable coins, a huge amount of the US Tether, the largest stablecoin issuer in the world, is like the 17th largest owner of US treasuries, right? So you had stable coins. Now we have dollars and other things on chain. You even have gold on chain. But I think the theme right now, because you have so many counterparties and people transacting on it, is people now want privacy. So you start to see all this talk about there's another coin out there. It's called Zcash. People want, they're called zero knowledge proofs. People want the ability to transact, especially if you're a public company. You don't want to see your competitors monitoring all of your payroll that's denominated in stablecoin. And a lot of engineers want to be paid in USDC or in stablecoins, but we need privacy when we settle those transactions. So I would expect the next shift of blockchain, there's a huge opportunity for whoever wins privacy as a settlement network.
Within that framework.
Yep.
Excellent. Last question. We talked a lot about Israel. Your passion is very evident. Tell us a bit about Israel Friends, what they did over the last 2 years. And I heard it, and it's very moving, and I'm sure the audience would like to hear as well.
So my Saba was he was an Etzel fighter. He fought in the Irgun, and he came to America in 1960. But every time war broke out, the Six-Day War, 73, he'd be back on an airplane. He'd go back to Israel. And when October 7th happened, I have 3 boys at home. One of them is named after him, Yossi, Sammy, and Yonatan. I said, one day they're going to ask, what did their dad do when war broke out? I'm not trained to be in the Israeli Defense Forces, but I wanted to do something. So I got on this airplane. We chartered this Airbus A330. It was a crazy flight, this Taglit trip. It was awesome. Everyone was singing Am Yisrael Chai. We landed. Everyone goes off to their units. We had 60 tons of cargo on that plane as well that we delivered, helmets, vests, everything. But we realized the typical, I don't want to speak too badly, but the old school Israeli or Jewish institution, like I think you know some of them, the friends of our defense forces, let's say, they weren't effectively deploying capital. And as startup people, we said, hey, Could we build a better organization where $1 in was $1 given? There's no high fancy salaries, no patronage, but we just solve problems. So to date, Israel Friends, we operate everything from a full-time PTSD farm in the north of Israel, where if someone comes back from Gaza or Lebanon or Syria and they're not quite ready to be reintegrated into their family life, they can come, they can spend the day or many days with kids with Down syndrome and get actual treatment. They can stay as long as they'd like. We provide still individual first aid kits to those still in. We've served over 200,000 meals through barbecues with DJs. We host events with Shai Rebo and everyone else, and Israel Friends is over $60 million that we've given. It now has a full-time, I'm too young to be a philanthropist full-time, but we brought in a great executive director who lives in Tel Aviv now, and God willing, that organization will keep going, hopefully in peacetime, not just wartime, right?
Fantastic. Yishal Koach. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jordan, thank you very much. Last but not least, I would like to call on Timothy Shia, Jeffries. Well, he's head of digital asset investment banking in Jeffries. He'll be speaking about what's next for blockchain. Jeffries have been good friends of this enterprise from the beginning, and we're very glad that you are closing our day today on behalf of Jeffries. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and very happy to be here. I think the topic here is meant to be the future of blockchain. What I'd like to start with is a little bit of history and how we got to where we are today, because I think that that's important to understand, at least my view on where things are going. So we don't need to go all the way back to the Satoshi papers, but I think if you go back a couple of years, it was really in the time around 2020, 2021, in the last bull market cycle, that as a banker sitting at one of the large investment banks here in New York, we started to get calls from people looking to do things with Bitcoin. And having been in the traditional fintech universe, it was something that we'd heard about but weren't really fully bought into yet. As we looked at the opportunities, we decided that it was something where we could take a commercial stance and really start to provide services that others weren't willing to do at the time. And that included anything from getting Michael Saylor going on his MicroStrategy acquisitions of Bitcoin to helping a private equity firm invest into a company where Bitcoin was one of the drivers of future growth, to then getting involved in some of the SPAC transactions that were happening around that time. Now, what you had at the same time as that bull market run back in 2020, 2021, is you had the presidential election that happened. The new administration that came in back then was not as friendly to crypto as maybe some in the industry would have liked. And I think that a combination of some of the hype driving up the prices prematurely, some of the regulatory things coming into play, and just, I think, overall the cycle, we went into what was called crypto winter. And it didn't help that you had, sort of going into that, failures of things like 3AC, a hedge fund that was in crypto. You had a lot of the lending networks start to fail. And then the one that really solidified things was the failure of FTX. And so then we entered crypto winter. It was really a difficult time for the industry, and no institutions wanted to touch it. Consumers or individuals were very, very skeptical, but things powered through. And then it was really, as we were starting to get into the early part of 2024, that things started to look a little bit better. There was a view that regulation may be changing. There was a view that asset prices were going up and that some of the things that were in the system before had worked their way out. But it was really Trump getting reelected that really caused the view of institutions to change. Don't want to get into politics at all as part of this conversation, but I think that we can look at that as something that really drove up prices over the course of the end of 2024 and throughout much of 2025, notwithstanding what we've seen over the past couple of weeks here. So I think that maybe to start in terms of where we are from an industry, it's regulation is now something where the US government is solidly behind things. That couldn't have been said 18 months ago. That allows institutions, so I'm talking about some of the largest banks, asset managers, et cetera, to actually enter the space. So you're starting to see institutionalization of the space. And that's not just Bitcoin, I'll get to it in a bit, but it's also looking at the underlying technology of blockchain and what that means for really eliminating what I call rent collectors in the real world assets world. And there's a lot of technological applications that can be applied that I think the right way to put it is just drive efficiency and transparency in the market, which allow for future growth. So that comes to where are we going in blockchain? I think that if you look at over the past couple of weeks, you've seen asset prices come down. That's just it's a natural ebb and flow. But if you look at some of the deals that have happened over the past, call it year, we have seen at least a half dozen companies come out and IPO, a lot more in the pipeline. We've been fortunate at Jefferies to be involved in a number of those. You've seen a number of M&A transactions, and this is not just a crypto company buying another crypto company on paper. This is a combination of not only that, but also crypto companies buying into TradFi, TradFi companies buying into crypto and doing it for cash with real money, and really putting their money where their mouth is in terms of adoption of this technology. And I think that if you look forward to the future, you're going to see even more of that in terms of capital markets activity going forward and in terms of M&A activity picking up. And I think that that's all something that is, it's very good for the industry, because what you have typically seen, and you've seen this in the past, is as markets become more institutionalized, and regulation is something that drives that, you get rid of the Wild West characters, and you bring in people that are real players, and that allows things to grow. So one example, and this is something, we were a lead underwriter on the IPO of Bullish, and one of the things that they talked about was if you look at OTC energy markets back a couple decades ago in the collapse of Enron, right? You can equate that to the collapse of FTX. Regulation came in after that, and it really cleaned up the market because it set what the ground rules are. What we have had happen over the past years, you've had the Genius Act come into play in the US. Clarity is coming. That's the market structure regulation. You've got the MiCA rules in Europe have come into play. And there are now either clear rules for the road or coming in the US with the market structure bill, the expectation for there to be clear rules of the road. And that's allowing institutions to drive volume higher. It's allowing people to be comfortable with what their investments actually are, and think that that really sets us up for the next layer of growth. One other area where that is actually important is with ETFs. I know that came up in the last panel conversation, is to like what way can you invest into crypto? Well, it used to be that you had to figure out how to do it yourself. Then you had exchanges. Now you have ETFs in the US where you can go into your brokerage account and buy it. And I do agree, it should be part of somebody's portfolio. Different people will have different risk tolerances and time horizons. But I think that the ease of access is something that is also very good for the industry. And if we think about other things that are going to be good for the industry, it is the adoption of technology. So I'll give you some examples here as well. There are companies out there that are applying blockchain technology, which is effectively just a distributed ledger that has immutability, right? So if it's in the ledger, you know that it's true. It's truth, not trust, is what people sometimes say. And that allows for real-time clearing and settlement of transactions on-chain, as opposed to going through systems that were designed off of mainframe computers decades ago. And what that means from a cost perspective for the companies that use this technology is you're able to eliminate service providers, do things natively, and this is the point that I made earlier about rent collectors and displacing them. So I think that what you're going to see is continued adoption of blockchain technology at enterprises, and really the adoption of blockchain technology for real-world assets, which means that you'll be able to natively on-chain at some point in the future trade securities, trade equities, fixed income, private credit, things of that nature, and do it at a much lower cost than what was seen historically. So that's one of the reasons I think why you saw companies like ICE invest into Polymarket, right? Because some of the exchanges are quite fearful, and some of the service providers in market structure are quite fearful that this technology is going to displace things in the way that they do business. And I think that the ones that recognize that and lean into the technology and invest and do it the right way are ultimately going to be the successful ones on the other side of this transformation. And we've seen it before with the adoption of things like the internet. The electronification of trading is something that comes to mind in fintech. And now here we have this new technology that allows for so much efficiency in the way that markets operate. So I know that we're running over on time and we're short on time here, but to close it out, I'm going to say that I think that notwithstanding the price drawdown that we've seen in Bitcoin over the past couple of weeks, this is a market that, because of fundamentals underpinning it from a technological standpoint, is one that is primed for continued growth, and not just in terms of asset price appreciation, but also in terms of adoption of the technology into really all aspects of the way that the financial services system works throughout the world. So with that, thank you, and I think lunch is awaiting.
Thank you, Timothy. Oh, thank you very much. I'd just like to sum it up by saying we want to thank our supporters, our partners, the speakers who dedicated their time. I want to thank Ehud Kav, our photographer, for helping us out. I want to thank the BMP team, and of course, the startups, the founders. Toda rabba l'chulam, and we hope to see you next time we're in New York next year. Toda rabba.